As long as Brad keeps working those insane hours, we can do this weekly. Oliver's making sure of it. I froze. My fingers gripped the door frame, breath caught in my throat. The voice was unmistakable, Josephine, my wife, whispering in the dark. My stomach churned as she laughed softly, a hushed giggle that used to be mine. He's so eager to please the firm. He won't suspect a thing. A second voice. Quincy, my HR director, my supposed ally. The blood drained from my face. The late nights, the extra work, the vague texts, none of it was random. It was planned. They were planning. And I was the fool. But not for long. Dear listeners, before we dive into today's story, let us know your location in the comments section. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Now let's begin the story. I still remember the exact moment everything started to feel off. There's that tiny hitch in your stomach when life shifts and you know, deep down, something isn't right. My name is Brad Hayes. I'm 31, a financial analyst grinding my way toward the senior spot at a high-profile investment firm. My life had always been about systematic goals, rational thinking, and careful planning. I never liked surprises. I especially never liked being caught by one. Josephine, my wife for almost 5 years, once joked that my methodical personality was both my best and worst trait. Great for dissecting stock trends, but pretty dull when it came to spontaneity. We got along, or so I thought, because she was the creative mind, a marketing consultant with a flair for big ideas, while I was the guy who grounded us with realism. We balanced each other. That's the cliché I told everyone. I believed it, too. At least I used to. Lately, I'd been pushing extra hours at Garrison & Cole, the investment firm I'd joined right out of grad school. There was talk of a new senior role opening up soon. The partners wanted to see who could handle the firm's biggest clients, who had the grit, the hustle, the intelligence. I was determined to prove myself. If that meant working late every night, then fine. I'd do it. This promotion would change our lives, bigger salary, more prestige, everything Josephine and I had dreamed of. I sat hunched over my desk one Wednesday evening, well past 8, running a final check on the Randolph Fund's performance metrics. My eyes stung from hours staring at spreadsheets, but I was so close to finishing. Next to me, Sharon, a coworker in a different department, leaned over the cubicle wall. "Hey, you're still here?" she asked softly. "Yeah," I said, rubbing my eyes. "I'm gunning for that senior spot, remember? Might be my ticket to a better life for Josephine and me." Sharon pursed her lips. She was friendly, but not close with me outside of work. "Well, good luck. But Brad, just make sure you watch your back." "Watch my back? About what?" She paused, looking as if she wanted to say more. Instead, she forced a small smile. "Office politics? You know how it can be?" Before I could press for details, she was off, heading toward the elevator. In a corner of my mind, a red flag twitched, but I chalked it up to typical workplace paranoia. In high finance, everyone angles for advantage. Finally, I closed out for the night, exhausted. As I drove home, I thought about the times Josephine used to text me around 5 p.m., asking if I'd be home for dinner. But recently, no texts. And if she did text, it was vague. Something like, "Busy with clients. See you later. Don't wait up." That was unusual, because my wife, she was normally the type who'd plan out every detail of an evening. What show we might watch, whether we'd do takeout or cook, even which scented candle to burn. Now it felt like she barely kept track of me. The next morning I woke early to the smell of coffee. For a split second it gave me comfort, like we were still in that honeymoon phase where she made me coffee before I woke up. I wandered into the kitchen. She was dressed in one of her sleek business suits, heels already on, hair pinned back in that professional twist she wore when meeting important clients. "Morning," I said, trying to sound chipper. She offered a brief smile. "I made some coffee, but I'm actually heading out soon. Early client breakfast." I took a mug, sipping carefully. I was thinking maybe we could have dinner together tonight. I can leave the office at a reasonable time. Maybe, Josephine said, checking her phone. She tapped the screen rapidly, as if in a hurry. I've got this marketing proposal I'm finishing, so I might be late. I tried not to let disappointment seep into my voice. All right. Another late one, huh? Her eyes flicked up, just for a second. The client's demanding. Sorry. You know how it is. The way she said it, with that forced, casual tone, made me uneasy. I watched as she grabbed her purse. Normally, Josephine was very affectionate, always a quick kiss before heading out. This time she just breezed past, saying, "Text me if you need anything," and left. I stood there feeling odd. Something about her posture, her half-smile, the tension in her voice. It seemed like Josephine was distancing herself, physically and emotionally. I brushed it off. Maybe she was stressed. Maybe her clients were a pain. That day, though, the coffee tasted bitter. During my lunch break at Garrison & Cole, I decided to check our joint credit card statements online. Typically, Josephine and I didn't police each other's spending, but we also never tried to hide it. Lately, the daily balance alerts felt higher than usual. Scrolling through the transactions, I spotted line items for Ember Lounge, Tall Grass Rooftop Bar, and a few other upscale places I'd never set foot in. I scratched my head. The dates were all on Fridays, Saturdays, around times I was clocked in at the office. Josephine always said she was exhausted from her marketing hustle. So why was she bar hopping? I made a note. Ember Lounge, check location. Tall Grass Bar charges 2 drinks, 4 drinks. This might have been legitimate client entertainment, but my instincts bristled. Josephine's entire approach was more creative dinners with marketing leads, not random nightlife. She disliked big crowds unless it was a polished networking event. That same day, Oliver swung by my desk. Tall, confident, with that oily grin that made him look like a politician. He slapped me on the shoulder. "Heard you're pulling late nights again, buddy. Good for you." "Guess so," I said, eyeing him warily. Oliver had always been friendly on the surface. We used to get beers, talk about the industry, but lately, I sensed he had an ulterior motive. He started bragging about some private cabin party he was throwing that weekend. "You should come out," he insisted. "It's a networking thing. You know some of the big clients might be there. You could really stand out." I shrugged, noticing how determined he sounded. "I'll think about it." He seemed oddly fixated on me going. "Yeah, man, bring Josephine too if you want. A lot of folks bring their spouses. It's just, well, it can get a little wild, but you'll have fun." Josephine had actually told me that morning she might be working Saturday, so I doubted we could both make it. I said something vague, which he nodded at, and then he walked off with that Cheshire cat grin. The entire conversation left me unsettled. Back home that evening, I told Josephine about Oliver's invitation to his cabin networking party. She was in the living room, laptop on her knees, phone next to her. She barely looked up. "Oliver's cabin party? This weekend?" She hesitated. "That's interesting." "Why interesting?" I asked, sinking onto the couch across from her. She fiddled with a pen. "I didn't realize you two were so close. Also, I might be busy. That big marketing campaign with the new client." I watched her carefully, the flick of her eyes, the subtle tension in her jaw. She seemed anxious. Then she said something that hit me strange. "You should definitely go, though. Oliver's well-connected, right? You don't want to miss that chance." I frowned. "Maybe. I was thinking we could drive up together, but if you're busy..." She almost flinched. "I can't. Sorry. You go have fun." In that moment, the possibility that she wanted me out of the house snaked through my mind. My gut twisted. "All right," I said slowly. "I'll think about it." That conversation ended awkwardly, with Josephine shutting her laptop and hurrying upstairs. I lingered on the sofa, confusion roiling. Was it me? Was she just worn out from her new workload? Something about how she almost pushed me to go alone felt manipulative. Before heading up to bed, I decided to check her Instagram, something I rarely did. She'd recently untagged herself in a photo from a friend's birthday. Usually she'd love being in pictures, so that was unusual. Who was she with? Why hide it? That night, close to midnight, I got up to grab some water. Our bedroom was dark, the only glow from Josephine's phone on the nightstand. She wasn't in bed. I could hear a hushed voice from our upstairs hallway. Slowly, I crept to the door, careful not to step on the creaky floorboard. Josephine's voice was low, urgent. "I promise we'll figure out how to keep him busy," she whispered. Then a pause. "Yes, I can handle that. Trust me, Oliver's making sure the deadlines keep piling up. He's not suspicious." My breath caught. She was obviously talking about me. Talking to who, exactly? The conversation ended abruptly. By the time I cracked the door open, she was tapping her phone screen to hang up. She nearly jumped when she saw me. "Brad scared me," she mumbled, slipping her phone behind her back. "I just had to step out so I wouldn't wake you." My heart pounded, but I forced a neutral face. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, it's just a late client call. Sorry. Go back to sleep," she said. Her tone was shaky, but she brushed past me into the bedroom. I stood there in the hall, a chill spreading through my veins. Josephine never used to hide calls from me. "Keep him busy? Oliver's making sure." My mind reeled. If there was something to keep me busy at the office, then I guess their plan was working. But what plan? And who else was in on it? The next day at work, I was practically on autopilot, replaying Josephine's whispered phone call in my head. My coffee tasted like mud. My appetite was gone. I stared at spreadsheets, but my real focus was on the cracks forming in my marriage. Mid-morning, Stella, our junior accountant, passed by my desk. She paused. "Hey, Brad, you got a minute?" I nodded, giving her a perplexed look. We weren't close friends, but we'd always been cordial. She leaned in, speaking softly so nobody else could hear. "I keep noticing how Oliver's pushing extra tasks your way," she said. "He's been telling me to forward certain reports to you for final review. That's unusual. Usually we'd share the load or he'd do it himself. Now it's all on you." I stiffened. "He's the one who recommended me for the senior spot." She sighed. "I know. Just double-check your promotions track, okay? Something feels off." I studied her face. She had that look of someone who wanted to say more but was scared. I softly pressed her. "Stella, do you know something I don't?" She hesitated. Then her eyes flicked around, ensuring no one else was listening. "There's talk around the office that Oliver might be working angles. I overheard him mentioning you to Quincy, that he wants you on big projects so you're pinned down at the office. But it's all hush-hush. Just be careful." The mention of Quincy's name, our HR director, sent a jolt through me. Something about it connected to Josephine's phone call, but I didn't know how. I simply thanked Stella, swallowing the dread creeping up my spine. That Thursday evening, Josephine breezed in around 9 p.m. with a bag of takeout in her arms. She set it on the kitchen counter. "Sorry, busy day. I brought us Thai food." I half smiled, relieved to see she made an effort. For a few minutes, we ate in silence, clinking forks in plastic containers. I wanted so badly to ask what was going on. The easiest route was to wait for her to slip up. She, however, began rattling off about a big, new marketing campaign, her eyes shining. "They're expecting me to handle big promotional events, top-tier market research. It means I'll need to spend a lot of Friday nights out with clients." "Friday nights?" I asked, setting down my fork. "That's when I usually stay late at the office. Now you're also out?" She tried to keep it casual. "It's, marketing can require social meetups. These aren't exactly quiet dinners." I studied her face. She didn't flinch, but I could sense the tension in her shoulders. "What kind of clients? Where are you meeting them?" She shrugged. "Bars, clubs, sometimes a lounge. They like to see the city." "Why?" I forced a laugh. No reason. Just making conversation. She quickly changed the subject. But in my mind, I pictured those unfamiliar charges. Amber Lounge, tall grass rooftop. So that's where she was going, parties, drinks. She wasn't lying about that. The bigger question, who was she with? Because my gut told me it wasn't just random marketing clients. After dinner, Josephine headed upstairs to shower. I took the opportunity to check her laptop again. She'd left it on the coffee table, locked this time. No chance of seeing her messages. Then I hopped onto my own phone, browsing social media. Her Instagram feed was full of curated pictures, but she'd untagged herself from a couple of events. I recognized the faces of acquaintances from her marketing circle, but the angle was weird, like she or someone else intentionally tried to keep her face out of certain group shots. One post from a marketing friend said, "Had a blast tonight at Ember Lounge with these amazing people. Cheers to new friendships." The group photo included Josephine's friend Nina, but Josephine was nowhere to be seen, though Nina had tagged her initially. I saw Josephine Hayes typed, then struck out. Could Josephine have requested removal? Why hide it indeed around 11 p.m.? I was dozing on the couch, half listening to the local news. Josephine's phone chimed from the coffee table. She must have forgotten it after showering. I blinked, noticing the sender's name, unknown. The preview read, "I'll see you next Friday. Don't forget Oliver's making sure he's..." At that exact moment, Josephine came downstairs in an oversized t-shirt, hair damp. She saw me glancing at the phone, and her face paled. In a swift move, she snatched it up, turning the screen away. "Work? Text?" I asked calmly. She nodded, swallowing. "Yeah, more details for that Friday meeting. Sorry, I need to respond." I just watched her, my heart pounding. Oliver was specifically mentioned, so that text basically confirmed he was coordinating something with her schedule. She tapped out a reply and turned around. "I'm wiped out heading to bed," she said, voice tight. I waited until I heard the bedroom door shut. Then I exhaled, my mind racing. Oliver? Josephine? Secret nights. Did this revolve around some twisted deal at the firm? Or something more personal? I won't lie, the next few moments I felt a wave of betrayal, confusion, and that unstoppable need to investigate. I'd always prided myself on controlling my emotions, but now they flared. The puzzle pieces were forming an ugly picture. Josephine might be cheating on me, with Oliver's help or maybe with Oliver himself. Or at least Oliver was aiding her in messing with my schedule, possibly for someone else's benefit. But I needed proof. I wasn't about to confront her with half-baked suspicion. That's not how I operate. No, I'd gather evidence, then act. As I flicked off the living room lamp, I promised myself that I'd figure this out whatever it took. My old life might already be gone, replaced by this labyrinth of deception. But I wasn't going to be left in the dark. Not anymore. I wish I could say I found quick, decisive answers in the days that followed. The truth is, it was more of a slow, creeping awareness, like water seeping through cracks until the entire foundation is at risk. Every day brought a new sign that Josephine, my wife, my partner, was secretly working against me. It was a Thursday. I had hammered through reports at the office by mid-afternoon, determined to leave early and see if Josephine really was at her so-called client meeting. I didn't text or call. I just left. When I got home, I was greeted by silence. No car in the driveway, no lights on inside. But her laptop was open on the dining room table. She never left that thing open, especially not with messages in plain sight. The screen was on a chat window from Q. I hovered over the keyboard, careful not to touch it, and shift the cursor. The conversation was paused at a point where Josephine wrote, "I can coordinate with Oliver to keep Brad on an extended audit. I just need your confirmation that we have the marketing pitch locked." And Q, which had to be Quincy, the HR director, responded, "Keep him on those late-night audits. Your new campaign pitch is safe with us. Remember, we can't risk him stumbling onto the arrangement." My stomach lurched. Arrangement? They were literally discussing a plan to keep me busy at the office so Josephine could do what exactly? The word arrangement reeked of deception. I stood there, stunned. The sense of betrayal was so heavy I had to steady myself against the table. If Quincy was involved, that meant my company's HR department was part of this twisted game. My mind raced. Are they blackmailing Josephine? Or is she an equal conspirator? Just as I was about to read more, headlights swept across the living room window. Josephine's sedan pulled into the driveway. Panicking, I slammed the laptop shut maybe too abruptly and stepped away. I quickly pretended to be rummaging in the fridge when she walked in. She froze, eyes darting to the laptop on the table. "You're home early," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "I finished my workload," I said, casually. "Wanted to spend some time with my wife." She set her purse down, glancing at the laptop. The tension in the air was tangible. If she suspected I'd read that chat, she didn't show it outright. "Yeah, sorry. I had a meeting." Her phone buzzed, and she quickly silenced it. "Meeting with who?" I wanted to ask. Instead, I just said, "You left your laptop open?" She winced. "Damn, I must have been in a rush. Didn't realize." Silence. I forced a smile. "Well, how'd it go?" "It was good. Got a lot done." She slipped out of her heels. "You want to order pizza or something tonight?" That small attempt at normalcy was so jarring. In that moment, the woman in front of me felt like a stranger, orchestrating secrets behind a polite facade. Later that night, she was showering. I seized the chance to reopen the laptop. This time, it was locked. She was learning not to leave it accessible. My mind replayed the lines I'd seen. Quincy referencing, "Your new campaign pitch is safe with us. Josephine wanting to keep me on an extended audit." Why would Quincy care about Josephine's marketing pitch? Unless the pitch was a code for something else. And "keep Brad busy" was definitely the underlying theme. My frustration grew. I needed more proof. After her shower, Josephine hurried downstairs and spotted me in the kitchen with an intensity that made my skin prickle. She marched straight to the dining room table, pulled the laptop to her chest. "Brad, I have to ask," she said sharply. "Were you looking at my messages earlier?" I raised my brows. Should I have been? She glared for a moment, then softened, forcing a laugh. "Hey, sorry, I've got sensitive client data. You know how it is in marketing. Can't risk leaks." "Sure," I said, "though you've never been this paranoid about it before." A flicker of guilt crossed her face. "Well, times have changed, I guess." She retreated upstairs with the laptop, leaving me stewing in confusion and anger. Something was definitely changing, and not for the better. The next day, a Friday, I tried to focus on actual work, but every time Oliver swung by to chat, my stomach tightened. He kept urging me to handle an urgent assignment for the Wilco hedge fund. "We need your brilliance, buddy," Oliver said, leaning on my cubicle wall. "This is a big client, and the partners want a deep analysis by Monday morning." I almost snapped that I wasn't a miracle worker, but I forced a polite grin. "All right, I'll get it done." I pictured Josephine and Quincy exchanging messages about how Oliver was piling tasks on me. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. Oliver noticed something in my expression. He gave a disarming chuckle. "Hey, Brad, we're on the same side, you know." "Sure," I muttered. When he left, I just stared at my screen, seething. He wasn't even subtle about the fact he wanted me stuck at my desk all weekend. Meanwhile, Josephine would probably be out doing God knows what. Was she hooking up with Quincy? Or with Oliver? Or both? He didn't mention the cabin party again, but it lingered in my mind like a door to a dark hallway I was scared to open. Maybe that party was part of the bigger plan. Maybe it was a ruse to keep me away from home at certain times. I decided I wouldn't even bother going. Let Oliver wonder. Maybe I'd stake out my own house instead, see what Josephine was up to. The thought of playing spy in my own marriage felt surreal. But I had no choice. I had to confirm if my suspicions were correct, or if I was losing it. Late that afternoon, Stella approached me discreetly, handing me some expense reports. "I know Oliver wants you to tackle these," she murmured, glancing around to ensure no one overheard. "Look, I'm not trying to start trouble, but not everyone at these parties is there for innocent reasons. Be careful." "Parties, meaning Oliver's?" She gave a quick nod. "Yeah, those weekend gatherings. I heard rumors it's less about networking and more about, well, hooking up. I'm not sure." She swallowed. "I also overheard something about your wife. I didn't catch details, just that Oliver asked if you'd be too busy to notice anything else." My pulse thudded. Stella's eyes were sympathetic. "Thanks for telling me," I whispered. "I might need your help soon. If you see or hear anything else suspicious, let me know." She gave a small nod. "Be cautious, okay?" That night, I left the office around 8 p.m., earlier than Oliver expected. He texted me, "Hey, you still at your desk?" I ignored it. Driving home in tense silence, I resolved to set up a hidden camera in the living room. If Josephine was meeting someone there, or if she had phone calls detailing her activities, I'd catch at least a snippet. I hated stooping to that level, but I needed concrete proof. At a big-box electronics store, I purchased a small, motion-activated camera disguised as a decorative clock. On the drive home, I almost second-guessed myself. Was I being paranoid? Could there be an innocent explanation? Then I remembered her phone calls at midnight, that suspicious text referencing Oliver, and my anger roared back. I arrived at the house quietly. The place was dark, no sign of Josephine's car. Perfect. I set up the camera on a shelf in the corner of the living room. Then I hid in the shadows, waiting. Hours ticked by. At around 10:30, headlights swept across the wall. I peered out. A black sedan had pulled up. It wasn't Josephine's. Then I spotted him stepping out. Quincy, the HR director. He paused at the curb, scanning the area. He looked jumpy. I ducked behind the curtain, my heart pounding so loudly I was sure he'd hear it. Why the hell was Quincy at my house late on a Friday? He pulled out his phone, presumably texting or calling. After a moment, he hopped back into his car, started the engine, and eased away like he was scoping out the place. But no one was home. I felt a wave of relief that he hadn't come inside, but also dread. Why was he here in the first place? Was Josephine supposed to meet him, but they got their wires crossed? Eventually, Josephine returned around midnight, alone as far as I could tell. She walked in with a tired sigh, dropped her purse on the couch. I pretended to be asleep in our bedroom, watching the camera feed on my phone. She didn't talk to anyone in person, but she made a quick phone call in a hushed tone. I only caught bits. "I saw your missed call. Sorry, I'm back now. Next time, okay? We'll coordinate better." The next morning, I replayed the footage, seeing her pace the living room, phone pressed to her ear. She never said who she was talking to, but it lasted only 2 minutes. Then she retreated upstairs. No face-to-face meeting. Still, the fact Quincy had shown up earlier told me something big was going on. I wasn't crazy. My wife was involved in something, and it wasn't innocent. I always wondered how I'd react if I ever discovered Josephine was cheating. Would I rage and break things? Would I cry? Maybe get drunk and pass out? But the reality was stranger. A cold, silent brand of fury that left my hands shaking, but my mind razor-focused. If I was going to catch her in the act, it would be on my terms. The very next Friday, I told Oliver I'd stay late to finish an urgent analysis. He smirked, obviously proud of cornering me. But in truth, I had set up a remote login from my home computer. By 8 p.m., I faked a reason to leave, telling Oliver I'd get dinner and come back. Instead, I drove home and parked 2 blocks away. Sneaking up to my own front door felt surreal. The house was dimly lit except for a glow from the upstairs bedroom. My gut churned. Carefully, I eased the door open. The floors creaked, but no one rushed down to greet me. Soft voices drifted from upstairs. I recognized Josephine's voice instantly, a breathy laugh. Another voice, male, low, murmuring something. My pulse hammered as I crept up, phone in hand, camera ready. Through a crack in the bedroom door, I saw them. Quincy, pressed against Josephine in our bed. I nearly dropped my phone. The shock was physical, like a punch to the gut. Josephine was in lingerie I'd never seen before. They were intimately involved. Her hair tumbling across his chest, her lips parted in a moan. My mind reeled. This was happening. Right now. In my darkest nightmares, I'd imagined her with Oliver. But this? Quincy, the HR director from my firm, the same man she'd apparently been planning with. My heart pounded so loud I was sure they'd hear me, but they were too absorbed in each other to notice. That's when I caught the conversation that would forever burn in my memory. Josephine, breathless, said, "As long as Brad keeps working those insane hours, we can do this weekly. Oliver's making sure of it." Quincy chuckled. "He's gullible. He'll chase that promotion forever. You're sure he's clueless?" She laughed softly, a bitter sound that made my throat constrict. "Of course. He's so eager to please the firm, he won't suspect a thing." I felt dizzy, gripping my phone for balance. My wife was a stranger, mocking my dedication, my trust. The words stung more than the sight of them together. My rational side kicked in, preventing me from storming in with fists. I pressed record on my phone, filming them from the narrow gap. The image shook from my trembling, but it'd be enough proof, enough to ruin them. A tear slid down my cheek, fury, humiliation, heartbreak, all twisted together. I silently told myself, "Calm down, you'll only get one chance to do this right." I recorded for maybe a minute more, ensuring their faces were visible. Then I ended it. Some men might have confronted them in that instant, but I had no interest in a big brawl or a meltdown that could end with me arrested. I wanted a more complete revenge, something methodical, like a strategy. So I took a final glance at Josephine with Quincy, in my bed. Our bed. I forced myself to remain quiet, then tiptoed out, my stomach in knots. Slipping back outside, I collapsed behind the wheel of my car, breath ragged. My entire world had crashed, but I wouldn't let them see me broken. I had the footage. That was the start of something bigger. I just sat there in the dark, tears burning my eyes, fists clenched on the steering wheel. My mind warred between heartbreak and rage. If I'd gone inside, I might have done something I'd regret. So I drove a few blocks away, parked in a deserted lot, and let out a scream that tore at my throat. Eventually, I calmed enough to call Sharon, my old college friend, now an attorney. My voice was unsteady, but I forced it out. "I have proof," I whispered into the phone. "I caught my wife with Quincy. I want to bury them professionally, financially, everything." Sharon's voice softened with concern. "Brad, oh my God. Okay. Send me the evidence. We'll plan carefully. If she's conspiring with your coworkers, that's bigger than just a cheating scandal." I nodded, though she couldn't see me. "I'll forward the recording. This is a conspiracy to block my promotion, right? They're intentionally messing with my job. That's worth something legally?" "Yes, could be. We'll explore alienation of affection, corporate malpractice, who knows. Let me see the video." Hanging up, my tears threatened again, but my anger roared louder. If they used me, I'd use them. This was war now. For hours, I drove aimlessly, not wanting to go home until Quincy was gone. My phone buzzed with Josephine's texts. "Hey, it's getting late. You still at work? Brad, are you good?" She dared to feign concern while another man was in our bed. The audacity made my stomach lurch. I pictured her lying with Quincy, maybe texting me at the same time. I pulled over at an all-night diner, sipped black coffee, ignoring her messages. My mind felt raw, like a million thoughts colliding. I considered telling my family, but I wasn't ready to handle pity or shock, not yet. Sharon texted me around 2 a.m. after watching the clip I'd sent. "Brad, this is bigger than just an affair. If Quincy is HR, he might be hooking staff into hush-hush arrangements. We need more details." I typed back, "I suspect Oliver's in on it, pushing me to do extra hours so they can have free reign." She wrote, That's huge. They're basically setting you up. Let's gather more evidence of collusion. Then we can sue for everything. I realized this might not be just about Josephine hooking up with Quincy. It could be an entire network of exploitation. I felt sick, but I also felt a spark of determination. At 3 a.m., numb and restless, I dialed Stella. It might have been rude to call so late, but she answered on the third ring, voice groggy. "Brad, everything okay?" I took a breath. "No, I caught my wife with Quincy tonight." She was silent for a few heartbeats. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I swallowed. "Stella, you hinted that Oliver hosts these client nights. I need to know if Josephine's been part of those. Do you have any proof?" She exhaled. "I've overheard Oliver mention Josephine specifically, how he's scheduling big tasks for you to keep you away. He bragged about hooking her up with certain opportunities. I think he's had her at the condo gatherings on Fridays." My throat tightened. So it wasn't a one-time fling with Quincy. She was sleeping around with multiple men? Possibly including Oliver? I forced calmness. "Stella, thank you. This is important. Let me handle the rest. Just keep an eye out, yeah?" She agreed. In her voice, I heard genuine sympathy. Ending the call, I decided this was my new reality. My wife was sleeping with different men from my workplace, orchestrating my schedule so she could keep her secrets. That cruelty felt surreal, but I wouldn't be a victim anymore. I returned home near dawn. The lights were off, and Quincy's car was gone. I snuck into the guest bedroom to avoid Josephine. Sleep was impossible. My mind was a hurricane of revenge fantasies, heartbreak, and strategic planning. The next morning, I quietly updated the hidden camera system, changed some login passwords, and started making a blueprint of how to systematically gather more databank records, phone logs, anything. I was done letting them toy with me. In the bathroom mirror, I saw a version of myself with bloodshot eyes, face drawn. But behind that haunted look was a man determined to strike back with every weapon at his disposal. This was no place for emotional meltdown. I wanted them humiliated, each of them. In the cold light of day, my path was clear. As if the universe wanted to confirm how deep this ran, I replayed the bedroom footage on my phone later that afternoon. That's when I noticed a snippet of background audio. Oliver's voice drifting from the hallway, faint but recognizable. He was there too. Maybe not physically in the bed, but close enough to be heard. Josephine moaned his name in a moment of blurred ecstasy, just a single syllable. Ollie, but distinct. I nearly dropped my phone. She was hooking up with both Quincy and Oliver in my own house. My stomach clenched. This was deeper and sicker than I'd realized. My hatred for them solidified into something more potent. They wanted to make a fool of me. They succeeded, but only until now. If the discovery of Josephine's affair with Quincy and Oliver was the turning point, the next stage was about building my case. I couldn't rely on raw anger alone. I needed to be methodical, gather evidence in a way that would leave them no escape. This was my specialty, crunching data, analyzing patterns. Except now the data was my marriage, my co-workers, and the twisted plot they were hatching behind my back. I started that Monday morning by combing through our joint financial accounts. Each purchase told a story if you looked closely. Josephine's bar tabs at Ember Lounge and Tallgrass matched nights I was stuck in the office. She'd buy multiple drinks, sometimes bottle service. That's not typical for just meeting a single client. I discovered suspicious reimbursements from Oliver's personal account to Josephine. Her Venmo feed showed consistent sums labeled project expenses. Project. That could mean anything, but it sure looked like he was funneling money her way. I saved screenshots, forwarded them to a private folder labeled Legal Evidence. I felt a grim sense of satisfaction. Let them think I was clueless. I was quietly amassing every detail that would bury them. Walking into Garrison and Cole that day was surreal. Everywhere I turned, I saw conspirators, or potential conspirators. Quincy was absent, apparently sick, which made me smirk. Oliver, however, waltzed around as if life was perfect, a smug grin on his face. He dropped by my desk, handing me a thick file. "Can you handle these performance metrics for Wilco's next quarter? We need them by Friday." I stared at him levelly. "That's a big project." He shrugged, feigning innocence. "I trust you. After all, you're the hardest worker here." My blood simmered at the hypocrisy, but I forced a polite nod. "All right, I'll get it done." He patted my shoulder. "Knew I could count on you, Brad." Then he strolled away. I wanted to punch him, but I kept calm. Soon, I told myself, he'll pay for everything. Over lunch, Stella slipped into the seat next to me in the break room, looking around warily before speaking. "Brad, rumor has it Oliver's planning a client social again this Friday. I heard him mention Josephine specifically about how she's their star attraction." My jaw tightened. "Attraction?" She lowered her voice. "Yeah, people gossip that Josephine's become popular at these gatherings. They're not official work events, but higher-ups attend. It's an open secret that there's partying, maybe some hooking up. Oliver covers it up, or so they say." I nearly crushed my soda can in my hand. "Thank you," I rasped. "This helps confirm a lot." Stella touched my wrist gently. "I'm sorry. You don't deserve this." That sympathy almost broke me, but I nodded, summoning a small, grim smile. After work, I decided to hang back in the lot, phone camera ready, to see if Josephine would show up for Oliver. I hid behind a row of cars, heart pounding in my ears. Sure enough, around 7 p.m., Josephine's sedan glided in. She parked near Oliver's shiny Lexus. I recorded from afar as Oliver walked up, leaning in her window. They exchanged what looked like a quick kiss, though the angle wasn't perfect. Then Josephine motioned for him to hop in, and they drove off. I stood there, breath shaky, phone clutched in my palm. I'd known they were hooking up, but seeing them so brazenly do it in my workplace parking lot stung. At least now, I had it on video. Further proof. The next morning, Stella found me in a back corridor, handing over a small USB drive. "I managed to collect some internal documents," she whispered. "It shows a payroll scheme. Quincy doubled your timesheet hours but credited them to Oliver so Oliver gets bigger bonuses. They're basically stealing credit for your labor." I felt my hands tremble with rage as I looked at the USB. "You risked a lot getting this." She nodded quickly. "I'm tired of watching them do this to you. I want them exposed. But please be careful. I can't lose my job." My gratitude for Stella soared. "Don't worry, I'll protect your identity." Now it was clearer than ever. They were using me financially and professionally. They sabotaged my personal life while siphoning my success. This was an orchestrated betrayal at every level. That evening, I had a call with Sharon, filling her in on the new evidence. She was stunned. "Brad, we have potential corporate fraud, harassment, and definitely grounds for an alienation of affection lawsuit. Josephine's actions are sabotaging your career and your marriage." I paced my living room, the hidden cameras still rolling in case Josephine came in with a phone call. "So, we can bring them all down?" "Potentially. But we need to be strategic. We should confirm more about Josephine's involvement with Oliver and Quincy. If we can prove they conspired to keep you out of the house so she could cheat, that amplifies your legal claim." I stared at the USB in my hand. "We're close. I just need a bit more, especially linking Oliver directly to the affair. Right now, I have a partial video, but no clear shot of him with her intimately." Sharon paused. "Stay calm. We'll gather everything, then strike at once. Corporate lawsuit, marital lawsuit, maybe even criminal charges if we find enough. Don't tip them off until we're ready." I exhaled. "Got it. Thank you." That night, Josephine came home well past midnight, reeking of alcohol and some flowery perfume I didn't recognize. She barely acknowledged me, setting her purse down. "Working late again?" I asked, a slight edge in my voice. "Yeah, I had to." "Don't start," she muttered, stepping out of her heels with a grimace. I studied her expression, the faint smudges of lipstick that wasn't her usual color. My anger twisted deeper. "Any interesting clients tonight?" She shrugged without making eye contact. "They're all interesting, trust me." Then she stalked upstairs. No guilt, no explanation. She seemed so sure of her ability to walk all over me. That gave me a savage sense of purpose. Let her think I was meek and blind. The day she realized otherwise would be glorious. Next morning, I tried to keep up the act that everything was normal. Josephine left early, claiming a breakfast meeting. I methodically updated my camera files, backing them up to a secure cloud. If she discovered the cameras and destroyed them, I still had the data. Deep inside, my anger felt nuclear. My hands itched to confront her, but I'd do it on my timeline. She had no clue I was systematically building a trap for her and her lovers. Sifting through older texts, I found conversations from a few months back, Josephine referencing how we should wait to have kids until after I got that promotion. She used to phrase it sweetly like, "I can't wait to start a family once we're financially stable." Now I realized the irony. She was helping sabotage my path to that promotion while hooking up with colleagues. If I'd fathered a child with her in the midst of this, it made me sick to think about. My fatherly excitement overshadowed by the possibility the child might not even be mine. That heartbreak recharged my resolve for revenge. By the end of that week, I had enough to blow the situation wide open. I told Sharon everything. The hidden camera footage, the parking lot videos, the payroll USB from Stella, the suspicious Venmo logs, and Josephine's phone calls. Sharon's reaction was unwavering. "We'll hit them with everything. Corporate suits, personal suits, maybe even go public if it helps. But let me outline a strategy. Don't say a word to your wife yet. Let me set things in motion." I agreed, every fiber of my being on edge. The next phase would be the beginning of their downfall. No more illusions, no more letting them play me for a fool. I was ready. I once believed the only place I felt total confidence was behind a spreadsheet, cool, analytical, unflustered. But that was before I stood at the brink of annihilating the life I once cherished. In the days after I caught Josephine with Quincy and indirectly realized Oliver was involved, I discovered a different part of myself. Ruthless, laser-focused, hungry for revenge. Part of me hated the transformation, but another part embraced it. If they wanted to tear apart my world and make me a pawn, they'd regret it. They'd see I wasn't the mild-mannered doormat they believed. By the time I reached this 5th chapter of my personal tragedy, I had just enough evidence to begin dismantling their scheme. A plan was crystallizing. My friend and lawyer, Sharon, had told me, "Play it smart. Don't blow your cover. Collect more. Let them convict themselves." And so I tried to live my days with a semblance of normalcy. Meanwhile, the quiet storm within me brewed stronger. Before I filed anything official, no lawsuits, no HR complaints, I wanted Sharon's guidance. One evening, right after work, I went straight to her home office. Sharon was a small, sharp-eyed woman with a voice that could go from comforting to cutting in seconds. We'd known each other since college, where we'd bonded over coffee-fueled all-nighters. Now, ironically, I was placing my entire future in her hands. She greeted me at the door with a sympathetic smile. "Brad, I made coffee. You look like you need it." "Thanks," I managed. My nerves were taut. Even though I was sure of my plan, the magnitude weighed on me. "Mind if we jump right in?" She nodded, leading me to a modest but tidy living room with a worn leather couch. "I already have a few ideas," she said, setting 2 steaming mugs on the coffee table. "Let's start with the personal angle, alienation of affection. If Josephine and these men conspired to keep you out of the house, that strengthens your case." I leaned forward, elbows on my knees. "She definitely conspired. I have text referencing Oliver, scheduling me with extra tasks. I have hidden camera footage, though I know that can be legally tricky, showing her hooking up with Quincy. Hell, Oliver's voice even appears in the background." Sharon's eyes narrowed. "Washington State. where Garrison and Cole is located, doesn't recognize alienation of affection as strongly as some places, but it's still a strategic tool in a broader suit. We can argue she used your trust, sabotaged your promotion, and engaged in workplace collusion with your colleagues. I swallowed, that last word collusion making it sound so official, so vile. That means I can go after Oliver and Quincy personally, right? Not just as employees, but as individuals? She gave a quick, firm nod. Yes, especially if we prove they manipulated your career path. We'll look at potential claims of tortious interference in your professional prospects. And let's not forget the workplace dimension. Payroll fraud. HR abuse, sexual harassment. Quincy's position alone might drag the entire firm's leadership into question. We have enough for a major scandal. My hands wrapped around the coffee mug, seeking warmth. Good. I want them all to burn. I want to do it in a way that doesn't blow back on me or you. She sat up straighter. We do this systematically. Gather as much evidence as possible, bank statements, phone logs, recordings of private conversations if they come up. Then I'll draft an initial complaint. We keep it under wraps until we can serve them all at once. She paused. Brad, I have to warn you, it won't be pretty. Once we serve them, it's war. They might retaliate, including smearing your name at the firm. A bitter laugh escaped me. They're already smearing me behind my back. I'm done playing nice. Let's just do it right. Sharon's gaze softened with empathy. You sure you're okay emotionally? This is your marriage, your life. Are you seeing someone for support? A therapist, maybe? For a moment, I remembered the love I once felt for Josephine. The softness in her eyes whenever I came home from a long day. The silly inside jokes about our future kids. It felt like 1,000,000 years ago. My voice emerged hoarse. I'll be okay once I stop them from walking all over me. She didn't push further. All right, let's talk next steps. She grabbed a notepad and began scribbling bullet points. We'll file eventually, but first I want you to consider lodging an HR complaint. That might seem ironic since Quincy's in HR, but it can shake things up if done correctly. You think so? She nodded. Yes. Even if he tries to bury it, the fact it's on record matters. Also, watch your finances. Start moving anything you need into a separate account. Once the lawsuits drop, Josephine might try to empty your joint assets. I inhaled slowly. Already done. I've got a separate bank account. Change my direct deposit. I'm also transferring half the joint savings to a secure place. Smart. The more you plan ahead, the less they can blindside you. Sharon finished her coffee, setting the mug down. I'll draft some documents. You keep collecting. Let me know if Josephine or Oliver or Quincy does anything new. We'll be ready. I rose, a strange mixture of gratitude and determination coursing through me. Thank you, Sharon, for everything. She walked me to the door, resting a hand on my shoulder. They messed with the wrong person. We'll show them that. I stepped into the cool night air, chest tight, but mind clear. My path was set. No matter how painful it would get, I had to see it through. Work that week was a seesaw of tension and forced normalcy. Each morning I arrived at Garrison and Cole, scanning the halls for Oliver or Quincy, trying not to let my fury show. Quincy was still out sick, which fueled speculation among colleagues about whether something shady had happened. Stella found me near the break room one afternoon, biting her lip like she had a secret. Brad, do you have a second? We drifted into a deserted corner behind some filing cabinets. She pressed a small envelope into my hands. This is something I found while archiving old HR records. It's a complaint from another female employee who claimed Quincy coerced her into certain, favors. She ended up dropping it. I suspect hush money was involved. My pulse quickened. Wow, this could be huge if it shows a pattern of Quincy abusing his HR role. Stella nodded anxiously. Yes, exactly. She withdrew her complaint, but I saved a copy. If you plan on exposing Quincy, you can mention this as background. She might be willing to testify if you approach her gently. Her name's blacked out in that copy, though. I carefully tucked the envelope into my briefcase. Stella, you're taking a big risk helping me like this. Her cheeks colored. I can't stand seeing them exploit people. Oliver and Quincy have made the office environment toxic. And seeing you, a genuinely good person, getting manipulated infuriates me. Emotion welled up in my throat. Thank you. I promise I'll keep your name out of this if that's what you want. She gave a shaky smile. I appreciate that. But if you need a witness or something, I'll step up. The sincerity in her words touched me. It reminded me that in the darkest situations, a few good people still exist. I gripped her shoulder gently. We'll see how it plays out. Just be careful. Oliver might suspect something. She sighed. He barely notices me unless he wants me to do grunt work, but I'll watch my back. You do the same. Once she left, I slipped into a restroom stall to peek at the complaint's details. Though heavily redacted, I saw references to sexual favors, intimidation, a threat of being blacklisted. My blood boiled. Quincy was more than a sleazy conspirator. He was a predator. The impetus to bring him down along with Oliver grew stronger by the day. Following Sharon's advice, I decided to file an official HR complaint about workplace intimidation, suspicious timesheet manipulation, and potential harassment. Of course, the irony was that I'd be submitting it to the very department Quincy managed, but the formality mattered. One quiet morning, I typed it up. I carefully avoided mentioning Josephine's infidelity directly. Instead, I stated I believed certain managers were conspiring to block or appropriate my promotion by piling extra tasks on me. I hinted at payroll irregularities. I attached evidence of the timesheet fiasco Stella had uncovered, labeling it Exhibit A. Hitting send on that complaint felt like tossing a match into a barrel of gasoline. I expected a fiery response. But for the first day, there was no acknowledgement. I double-checked the system to confirm it had gone through. It had. They were probably scrambling behind the scenes. 2 days later, Quincy was spotted lurking in the halls again, looking pale. He didn't come to my desk. Instead, a generic HR staffer emailed me, "Your complaint is under review. We'll inform you of next steps." That was it. A short, impersonal note. I forwarded it to Sharon. She replied within minutes. "Perfect. They're stalling. Keep the complaint in your back pocket. We'll show they refuse to investigate properly, too." So that was how they wanted to play it, ignore me, and hope I gave up. Fine. That only made my next move more satisfying. Meanwhile, Oliver grew bolder, stopping by my cubicle daily with tasks. The arrogance in his smirk made me want to wipe it off his face with a single punch. But I had to remain calm. Patience, I reminded myself. One afternoon, he rolled up with a file under his arm, leaning in close. "Hey, buddy, need your eyes on these Fowler Group statements. Deadline is Monday morning, so you might have to stay late again." I feigned a pleasant tone. "Sure thing, Oliver. Anything else?" He gave a chuckle. "That's all for now." Then he angled his head, voice dropping. "By the way, how's Josephine doing? She mentioned a big campaign. She must be super busy these days, huh?" My pulse hammered. He's taunting me. But I kept my poker face. "Yeah, she's swamped. Hardly see her. But you know how marketing can be." He nodded, that smug glint in his eye. "Absolutely. I love how dedicated she is." Then he winked. "She's quite an asset, I hear." My jaw clenched, but I forced a chuckle. "Right. Guess so." My hands curled under the desk, hidden from view, nails digging into my palms. Oliver gave a lazy salute. "All right. Keep up the great work." He strolled off, probably thinking he'd struck a blow to my pride. In reality, each new taunt only fueled my determination to crush him. As soon as he left, I jotted a note in my phone. Oliver openly references Josephine. Might be more proof of personal involvement. I'd gather every shred of his arrogance as evidence. At home, Josephine put on a show of concern. Some nights, she'd order dinner or ask how my day was. Her eyes glimmered with guilt whenever I answered too vaguely. She was trying to gauge if I suspected anything. One evening, she popped into the living room as I scrolled on my laptop. "You've been working so hard lately," she cooed, sitting beside me on the couch. She rested a hand on my knee. "Don't burn yourself out, okay?" I glanced at her, my mind replaying those images of her with Quincy in our bedroom. "I'm fine," I said, forcing a tight smile. "Guess we're both busy, right?" She shrugged in what she thought was a casual manner. "Yeah, the marketing world never sleeps." Then she pressed, "Anything bothering you? You seem a little distant." The irony almost made me laugh. Me? Distant? She was the one engaged in multiple affairs. Still, I put on a calm face. "Just stressed about some coworkers messing around with my projects. I might file complaints." Josephine stiffened. "Complaints? Why?" I watched her reaction carefully. "Some irregularities, you know. I want to make sure I'm recognized for the overtime I've put in." Her eyes flicked away, a hint of alarm there. "I see. Well, do what you have to do. Just be careful. You don't want to anger the wrong people." I suppressed a scoff. She was basically telling me not to cross Oliver or Quincy. The gall of it made my skin crawl. "I'll keep that in mind," I said coldly. When she left the room, I exhaled shakily. She's worried. Good. Let her be uneasy. This was far from over. In the midst of everything, I followed Sharon's directive to the letter. One Saturday, Josephine claimed she needed to attend some luncheon for a prospective client. I used the solitude to recheck all our financial accounts, transferring half our shared savings into a newly minted personal account at a different bank. I set up an online investment portfolio in my name alone. I also changed my direct deposit so my future paychecks would go there. Every beep of confirmation on the computer felt like a shield. If Josephine tried to drain the joint account in retaliation, she'd be disappointed. I left enough to pay immediate bills, so it wouldn't be blatantly suspicious, but the bulk was now under my exclusive control. Out of curiosity, I peeked at Josephine's separate credit card statement, the one I'd gleaned access to from her desk drawer receipts. She was racking up more bar and lounge purchases than ever, possibly paying for hush-hush gatherings or hooking up with new men from the firm. A coil of disgust twisted in my gut, but I typed screenshots into my evidence folder. Let it all serve as a thorough record. That evening, I double-checked my hidden camera's angles. The living room was covered, but I added one more device near the entryway. If Josephine brought anyone else in again, I'd see them the moment they stepped foot inside. The next Monday, an unexpected email landed in all employees' inboxes. Mandatory staff meeting with Board of Directors Tuesday 4 p.m. main conference room. No context given. The office buzzed with speculation. Some thought it was routine. Others suspected bigger news was coming. Oliver seemed rattled, though he tried to hide it behind a cocky grin. "Wonder what the old geezers want now," he joked to a group of us near the copier. But I noticed him exchanging uneasy glances with a returning Quincy who looked pale and tense, as if he'd been ill for a month. I suspected the HR complaint I'd filed was stirring up questions at higher levels. Maybe Stella's tip or that hush-hush complaint from another employee was forcing the board to take some action. By Tuesday at 4 p.m., the entire staff crammed into the glass-walled conference room. The board's chairperson, a gray-haired man named Malcolm Rhodes, stood at the head of the table. Two other board members flanked him, stern-faced. Oliver perched at the side, arms crossed, near Quincy, whose expression was unreadable. Rhodes cleared his throat. "We've called this meeting to address concerns raised about the firm's internal processes specifically, the handling of certain tasks, possible timesheet discrepancies, and any allegations of misconduct." He paused, scanning the crowd. "We want to affirm Garrison and Cole's commitment to integrity. If employees have complaints, please come forward." My heart thudded. This was exactly the can of worms I wanted opened. I kept a neutral face as Oliver's jaw flexed in annoyance. Josephine wasn't present. She wasn't on the firm's payroll, so she avoided the scrutiny. Quincy lifted a hand, forcing a smile. "Yes, we're aware of a few rumors. Our HR team has seen some anonymous claims." and we're reviewing them thoroughly. Rhodes gave him a cold look. We expect those reviews to be handled swiftly and transparently. If not, the board will step in. Quincy's eyes flicked nervously. Oliver kept his chin high, but tension rippled off him. A hush fell over the room. Then Rhodes said, "All right, that's all for now, thank you." The meeting dispersed, a swirl of mutters following. My pulse raced with anticipation. They were on notice. Good. Let them sweat. Another Friday arrived. I told Oliver I'd be pulling another late shift to finish some urgent deliverables. He beamed, biting the bait. Meanwhile, I had no intention of staying. At around 7 p.m., I quietly left the building, hopped into my car, and drove home, parking discreetly again. Josephine's sedan was gone, which didn't surprise me. I suspected she'd be at the next client night or hooking up with who knows which coworker. With my phone, I accessed the hidden camera feed. The living room was empty, just the soft hum of the AC. So I waited. An hour passed. Then headlights flickered across the driveway. My camera captured the front door opening. Josephine entered, followed by two men. One was Oliver, who I recognized that tall frame and self-satisfied stance. The other was a slender younger man from the office, though I couldn't recall his name. My stomach lurched. Two men. The feed showed Josephine leading them inside with a grin. She offered them drinks from the bar cart. I boosted the audio input on my phone's app, picking up snippets of conversation. Oliver. "Brad's stuck at G&C, so we have the place to ourselves." Josephine, laughing. "Yeah, he's so busy these days." The younger man, who I faintly remembered as some entry-level associate named Carson, looked nervous. Josephine teased him to relax. My rage spiked seeing them in my home, rummaging through my liquor bottles, laughing about my whereabouts. This was beyond humiliating. It was downright vile. They lounged on the couch, flirting. Josephine touched Oliver's thigh, leaning in to kiss him. Carson looked uncertain, but eventually Josephine beckoned him closer too. My heart hammered in disgust and fury. So this was her new hobby, threesomes with office co-workers in my living room? Half of me wanted to burst in, film them up close in my own house, confront them violently. But the cooler half reminded me I had them on camera with clear audio on my property. This was indisputable proof. Not just an affair, but multiple parties from my workplace, messing around with my wife. And bragging that I was conveniently stuck at the office. It was the gold mine of evidence. I recorded from the camera's app, ensuring I saved the entire session to the cloud. For an agonizing half hour, I watched them drink, giggle, and eventually get too handsy. Josephine's top came off. Oliver kissed her neck. Carson looked mesmerized. I couldn't watch more. My stomach lurched with a sick feeling. I ended the feed, leaning back in my car seat, pulse racing. My eyes burned with tears of rage, heartbreak, horror. They're all going down. No mercy now. This was 1,000 times worse than I'd imagined when it was just Quincy. She'd apparently turned our home into some after-hours sexual playground for half the firm. My entire world was a twisted stage set by these immoral idiots. Enough. I wanted to drive away, but I forced myself to wait, letting them wrap up. Eventually, around 10:30 p.m., Oliver and Carson left, Josephine waving them off from the door. She looked flushed, hair disheveled, but she wore a triumphant smirk. I seethed, a triumphant smirk in my house, so sure I was none the wiser. When they were gone, I gave it another hour for Josephine to presumably take a shower, settle in. Then I entered the house quietly, finding her sitting in the living room with a glass of wine, phone in hand. She glanced up, startled. "Oh, you're home earlier than I thought." I plastered on a tired smile. "Yeah, the Wilco assignment went faster than expected." She studied me, searching for hints of suspicion. "Long night, huh?" "Yeah," I said curtly, dropping my keys on the table. "I'm exhausted." Inside, my thoughts screamed, "I saw everything, you vile traitor." But outwardly, I feigned mild fatigue. Let her enjoy her illusions a bit longer. She had no idea that her smirk, her sockled secrets, and her conspirators were about to face an avalanche of consequences. I trudged upstairs without another word, ignoring her attempts at small talk. Once behind the locked door of the guest bedroom, I sank onto the bed, breathing raggedly. The final straw had landed. My evidence was bulletproof. My plan, unstoppable. In a few days, or maybe weeks, I would unleash it all. Then Josephine, Oliver, Quincy, and every other complicit bastard would watch the facade they'd built come crashing down. By the time the weekend ended, I was done playing the silent observer. I had enough video footage, messages, and financial documents to bury all of them. Sharon and I had hammered out a timeline for launching our offensive, what we called Operation Tsunami. And once it started, there would be no turning back. This wasn't just personal revenge anymore. It was also about workplace corruption, potential harassment claims, and money laundering. Everything I'd uncovered was far bigger than a cheating spouse. It was a labyrinth of unethical collusion. My heartbreak had become the impetus for shining a light on the darkest corners of Garrison and Cole's behind-the-scenes deals. I woke up Monday feeling oddly calm. There's that moment before a big exam or a major presentation where your nerves settle into icy focus. That's how I felt stepping into the office at 8 a.m., my bag loaded with folders labeled confidential, my phone brimming with secret recordings. I'd spent Sunday reviewing each piece of evidence with Sharon. Videos, Josephine hooking up with Quincy in my bedroom, plus the vile threesome with Oliver and Carson, financial records, the timesheet scam, Oliver's reimbursements to Josephine, suspicious Venmo transactions, witness statements, Stella's input, plus mention of the redacted complaint from another HR victim. At 9 a.m., process servers discreetly arrived at Sharon's instructions. I'd told her exactly which employees to target. Oliver, Quincy, a few others who facilitated the timesheet manipulation, and Josephine herself for spousal wrongdoing in collaboration with them. The idea was to serve them all simultaneously, guaranteeing maximum chaos. I sat at my desk, pretending to type calmly, but adrenaline pulsed in my veins. Any minute now. At 9:15, my phone buzzed with a text from Sharon. "They're on the move!" I exhaled a shaky breath. Showtime. Sure enough, a quiet stir swept the office. A man in a gray suit carrying a briefcase asked for Oliver by name, then for Quincy, then for two others. The hush grew as people realized these were process servers handing out legal documents. Tension crackled in the air. Then a separate courier arrived at our home address, presumably to serve Josephine. I wished I could see her face in that moment, unwrapping an envelope that spelled out a personal lawsuit for alienation of affection and conspiracy to defraud me. She'd panic, no doubt. The thought gave me grim satisfaction. Within minutes, I saw Oliver in the hallway, ripping open his envelope. His face blanched. He spun around to glare across the open cubicles. Our eyes locked, and I could almost taste his fury. "Yes, look at me, you bastard!" Quincy, equally flustered, fumbled with his. Sweating, he retreated to an empty office, phone in hand, probably trying to call Josephine or their lawyer. The rest of the staff looked on, murmuring. Some recognized that these lawsuits tied to the hush-hush rumors about me. Stella caught my gaze from across the floor, nodding subtly in support. Inside, my heart hammered with victory. I forced myself to appear neutral, typing away. This is only the beginning. The board of directors wasn't served yet. Sharon's advice was to hold off serving the firm itself until we had a bit more on the record. But Oliver's personal suits and Quincy's served documents set the place ablaze. Within an hour, the entire building buzzed with speculation. People whispered about serious allegations, about someone hooking up with Brad's wife, about a scheme to cheat Brad out of his promotion. I pretended ignorance, even as two board members stormed in for a crisis meeting. By noon, the partners announced an emergency closed-door session. They yanked Oliver and Quincy from their offices. The tension soared. I sat in my cubicle with my hands folded, hardly getting real work done. A small part of me trembled fear of retaliation, fear of how Josephine might respond. But the bigger part felt unstoppable. I had the truth on my side, and it was well documented. Around 2 p.m., the chatter was deafening. Oliver's apparently been suspended pending an investigation. Quincy's on the hot seat, too. I heard from a colleague that Oliver was yelling something about being betrayed by a friend, presumably me. I just kept my head down. Let them blame me all they want. They started this war. Shortly after 2 p.m., I found Oliver prowling the corridor, face flushed with anger. He spotted me near the printing station and stomped over. "Man, we're friends," he hissed, waving the legal papers. "This is insane! We can fix it if you just talk to me." I leveled a calm stare at him. "Friends? Really? That's funny considering you conspired to keep me working late while you had your fun with my wife." He opened his mouth and closed it, struggling for words. "You got it all wrong. He rattled the papers. "These accusations are crazy." I stepped closer, voice low. "Did you forget how I saw you picking her up? How I have you on camera in my living room? You left your damn footprints all over my house, Oliver. You think I'm an idiot?" His face went ashen. He clearly didn't realize I had actual video evidence. Then fury flashed in his eyes. "If you do this, you'll ruin both our careers. The firm won't stand for this scandal." I gave him a cold, mirthless grin. "There is no we. I'm done with you. Everything you did, every time you mocked me behind my back, made me more determined. Enjoy your downfall." He stood there, speechless, as I brushed past. My heart pounded. Confronting him so directly felt both terrifying and liberating. Yes, Oliver, you've messed with the wrong man. Not long after, my phone buzzed with repeated calls from Josephine. I ignored the first two, letting them go to voicemail. The third time, I answered with forced calm. "Brad?" Her voice trembled. "Please, can we talk?" I paused. "About what?" She exhaled shakily. "I just got served something about you suing me for an affair or sabotage or I don't understand." I suppressed a bitter laugh. "You don't understand? Josephine, you systematically conspired with Oliver Quincy and who knows who else. You joked about me in my own home. You sold out my promotion for your little twisted fun. Don't claim ignorance now." She choked on a sob. "It was just sex. It never mattered. I was in over my head. I didn't plan on hurting you." I cut her off, words laced with venom. "It never mattered? You turned our marriage into a joke. You used me. Let them laugh at me while you hopped from one co-worker to another. Now you want pity?" Silence, except for her ragged breathing. Then she tried a new angle. "We can fix this, baby. Don't let lawyers manipulate you. Don't ruin my life." I barked a humorless laugh. "Your life? You think I'm worried about your life after what I've seen? Check your text logs, or better yet, the camera footage of Oliver and that rookie you brought into our living room. Then tell me how it was just sex." She gasped, evidently clueless about the hidden cameras. "Well, what camera? You have me on camera?" "Damn right I do. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Goodbye, Josephine." I ended the call, my hands shaking from the emotional whiplash. I'd never spoken so harshly to her before, but it felt earned, and it felt good. By late afternoon, a local business paper's website posted an anonymous tip about mass legal actions at Garrison and Cole involving sexual misconduct and corporate fraud. My phone lit up with notifications. The story lacked specifics, but claimed an internal meltdown was underway with key employees under investigation. I recognized Sharon's subtle handiwork. She'd said sometimes a little media pressure helps ensure the firm can't quietly sweep everything under the rug. Now the entire city's finance community would be watching. Quincy and Oliver's hush-hush scheming couldn't hide behind closed doors. A wave of resignations, followed by day's end. People tangentially involved, like those forging my timesheets, panicked and ran. Each tried to distance themselves from the scandal. I watched with grim satisfaction. Burn, you corrupt machine. Burn. Amid the chaos, Stella sent me a private message. We did it. Everything's coming out. I'm so relieved. I found her before leaving for the day, meeting in a quiet corner. Her eyes shone with both excitement and nerves. Thank you, I told her quietly. Without your help, I might have never exposed them. She shook her head. I couldn't just stand by. They walked all over people. We saw a swirl of co-workers dashing around, packing personal items, uncertain if the firm was about to implode. Stella looked worried. Is the firm going to survive? I shrugged. I have no idea. But if the board is smart, they'll cut out the cancer and move on with honest leadership. I don't want the entire place to collapse. I like my job. I just want the scumbags gone. She nodded fervently. I hope so, too. Anyway, I'm here if you need me for any testimony or clarifications. For a moment, warmth filled my chest. Stella was a bright spot in this nightmare, proving that not everyone at Garrison & Cole was rotten. Thank you. Don't worry, I'll make sure your role is recognized if this turns around. And if you ever need a reference from me, I'll sing your praises to high heaven. She blushed, but smiled. That means a lot, Brad. Really. After leaving the office, I headed to Sharon's place to debrief. She greeted me with a grin that said, I told you so. We settled in her living room, surrounded by law books and manila folders. Well, she asked, handing me a glass of water. How's it feel being the epicenter of a corporate and personal meltdown? I gave a dry chuckle. Strangely liberating, but also exhausting. Josephine called, tried to feign shock. Oliver's meltdown was priceless. Sharon's eyes gleamed. Excellent. The next step is we press forward with depositions and preliminary hearings. They'll scramble for a settlement, I guarantee. My fingers tapped the glass. I want them penalized. But part of me wants a day in court, to expose everything publicly. She tilted her head. That might happen, but often these cases settle if the opposing side is cornered. The firm's leadership might want to avoid a protracted trial that humiliates them further. I considered that. As long as Josephine, Oliver, and Quincy face real consequences, I'm open to negotiation. But I want something that leaves no doubt about their guilt. Sharon nodded. We'll push for maximum restitution. Meanwhile, we'll coordinate with the firm's board to see if they'll press separate charges against Oliver and Quincy for defrauding the company. You might end up with multiple streams of settlement money. The notion of financial windfall from my own tragedy felt surreal. Money alone won't fix the betrayal. She looked sympathetic. I know, but at least it can help you rebuild your life. If I may ask, how are you holding up emotionally? I paused. Better than expected. Anger mostly overshadowed the sorrow, but when the dust settles, I might crash. For now, I have to see this through. She gently squeezed my arm. We're in the thick of it, but I promise you'll come out the other side. And you'll come out stronger. I mustered a half smile. That's what I'm counting on. The next morning, I arrived to find Oliver's desk cleared out. A company-wide email stating he'd been suspended pending internal investigation. Word around the water cooler was that he faced multiple suits, my personal one, plus potential corporate charges if they confirmed timesheet fraud and misappropriation. He was effectively done at Garrison & Cole. Walking past his empty cubicle, I felt a rush of triumph. This was the same man who smirked at me daily, boasted about his networking parties, who shamelessly seduced my wife under my own roof. Now his possessions were stuffed into a cardboard box by HR staff. Poetic justice. While I packed my coffee mug and a few personal items, a co-worker approached me. Conrad, a decent guy from the finance department. Heard what happened, man. You okay? I gave a short nod. I'm surviving. He shook his head. Never liked Oliver, but damn, this is bigger than I imagined. If you need anything, just holler. We're all reeling from the scandal. Thanks, I said sincerely. Having simple, supportive words felt good. Near day's end, an HR rep summoned me to the boardroom. A swirl of anxiety and curiosity filled me. Once I stepped inside, I found two senior partners, along with Rhodes from the board, waiting. Rhodes cleared his throat. "Brad, thank you for coming. We're aware of the suits you've filed against certain employees. We respect your right to legal recourse. The firm is cooperating fully." I nodded, heart pounding. "I appreciate that." One of the partners leaned forward. "We'd like to see if we can salvage your relationship with the firm. You've been an excellent analyst, and obviously you uncovered wrongdoing. We want to propose a path forward." I raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What are you suggesting?" They exchanged glances. Rhodes spoke again. "We might suspend or fire those involved. We'd also like you to stay on, possibly even in a higher capacity to help rebuild trust and processes. We need honest leadership. This is not an official offer yet, just a conversation." A surge of satisfaction flooded me. They need me now. I'm open to discussing it, as long as it doesn't compromise my legal claims. I want those responsible to face consequences. Rhodes nodded gravely. "We understand. Let's talk again soon after we handle some immediate cleanups." "Sure," I said. "I'm willing to help steer the firm in a better direction." I left that meeting with a swirling sense of vindication and relief. The avalanche had indeed started, but there was still so much left to settle: Josephine's meltdown, Quincy's fate, the divorce, final lawsuits. This was just the next step in a much larger war. While the office environment exploded in scandal, a parallel battle raged in my personal life. Serving Josephine with divorce papers and the attached lawsuits shattered any illusions of normalcy at home. She vacillated between begging me to reconsider and raging that I'd destroyed us. The only consistent theme was her desperation to avoid full responsibility. But for me, the home I once saw as a cozy refuge had become a battlefield. Every conversation, every glance was a minefield. I insisted she move out, but she stalled, whining about having nowhere else to go. She'd orchestrated my humiliation with Oliver and Quincy, yet expected me to pity her. I refused. The day after Oliver's suspension, I came home at dusk to find Josephine standing in the driveway with a suitcase. She'd apparently been out of town, maybe staying with a friend, or hooking up with more coworkers, who knows? Her eyes were red from crying. She rushed forward the moment I stepped out of my car. "Brad! I didn't know where else to go. I'm sorry, okay?" I angled away, cold anger pulsing. "Shouldn't you be at Oliver's place or Quincy's? Or that condo where you hold your parties?" Tears slipped down her cheeks. "Don't do this. I can't live like this, with lawyers and suits, and you refusing to talk." She gestured at her suitcase. "I have nowhere else." My skin prickled with disgust. "You made this bed, Josephine. Or rather, you used our bed for your affairs. Don't expect me to welcome you back." She whimpered. "We're married. Doesn't that mean anything to you?" A harsh bark of laughter escaped me. "It clearly meant nothing to you. I have a restraining order drafted if you refuse to leave." She blanched. "You're that determined to push me away?" "I'm determined not to let you manipulate me again," I snapped. "I want you out, but I'll give you a day to figure out accommodations. Don't push it." Tension coiled in the air. She sniffled, blinking rapidly. "Fine. I'll just gather some things." I let her pass, arms crossed. Inside, my heart hammered. Despite my hatred, a part of me still felt the sting of sadness. We once loved each other. Now we were enemies. But there was no turning back. That same night, I rekeyed the house. I'd planned it for weeks, but seeing Josephine in the driveway accelerated my timeline. I spent an hour removing the old locks, installing new ones I'd purchased. The symbolic finality of it wasn't lost on me. Josephine came downstairs from presumably rummaging in the bedroom, a half-packed bag in hand. She saw the lock kit on the floor. Wow. So you're literally locking me out. Look, after what you did, I can't trust you with access to my home. Our marriage is effectively over. Accept it. Her expression twisted with bitterness. How could you be so cold? I paused my work, leveling a calm stare at her. You turned me into this. The day I watched you with Quincy in my bed and later discovered your escapades with Oliver was the day you killed my warmth toward you. She blanched, glancing away. I was lonely, I guess. I got caught up in the excitement. That confession only stoked my anger. And I was slaving at the office thinking I was building a future for us. Save your excuses, Josephine. Pack your things and go. She huffed, tears welling again. You'll regret this. I bit back a reply. Let her rant. She'd soon realize regret was hers to bear, not mine. I'd already preemptively moved most of our savings. Sure enough, the next morning, Josephine tried to use our joint account. The statement showed repeated attempts at withdrawing large sums, which got blocked by the daily limit. She texted me in fury, "What the hell, Brad? I can't get money." I typed back a single line. Joint account is effectively closed. You brought this on yourself. No response for a while. Then, we need to talk about finances. I ignored it. Let her figure out her own living situation. If she was so close with Oliver and Quincy, maybe they'd float her alone, or maybe she'd crash on a friend's couch. I refused to bankroll her betrayal. Just when I thought the home front couldn't get more tense, Oliver showed up unannounced one afternoon while I was in the garage reorganizing. I heard a car pull up, then pounding on the front door. My stomach churned. Josephine had left by then. I marched to the door, opening it a crack. Oliver stood on the porch, shoulders heaving. He looked disheveled, not his usual suave self. "What the hell are you doing here?" I demanded. He tried to push the door open, but I wedged my foot. "I need to talk to you," he growled. "I deserve an explanation. You blindsided me with those lawsuits." Fury coiled in me, but I kept calm. "Get off my property. If you want to talk, do it through attorneys." He planted a hand on the door. "You can't do this, Brad. I never meant for it to get so out of hand." My voice dripped venom. "You bragged to Josephine about how easy it was to keep me busy, how stupid I was to chase the promotion. You think I'm going to show sympathy?" He hesitated, eyes flicking around. "Look, I messed up, but do you realize the firm's about to fold under this scandal? We could lose everything, you included." I stared him down. "Better the firm is cleansed than let your corruption thrive. And if it goes under, I'll find another job. That's on you." He scowled, stepping back. "So that's it? You won't even hear me out?" "Why should I?" I spat. "I saw you in my living room with Josephine. You made my home your sex den. You tried to claim my hours to boost your pay. There's no excuse. Now leave before I call the cops." He glared, fury warring with desperation. After a moment, he stormed off. I stood there, heart pounding, adrenaline flooding me. "Try anything else, Oliver, and I'll bury you even deeper," I vowed silently. While Oliver attempted direct confrontation, Quincy took a sneakier route. One evening, as I scrolled emails, I found a forwarded chain. He was threatening to leak personal info about me, presumably to sabotage my reputation, maybe details about my performance or private emails. Sharon responded calmly when I told her, "We'll file an immediate restraining order and anti-retaliation motion if he does that. Also, if he tries to release your personal data, that's a breach of HR confidentiality, another nail in his coffin." That knowledge reassured me. Let Quincy try. He'd only add more fodder to my case. The best part? I'd included references to his threats in the lawsuit. The judge would love seeing that. Still, I changed all my passwords, installed extra security cameras, and triple-locked the windows. I wasn't sure how far a cornered Quincy might go. The chaos at home was bad enough. I didn't need him sneaking around at night or stirring more trouble. My once quiet suburban street turned into a rumor mill after neighbors saw cops remove Oliver from my driveway. Then they noticed Josephine dragging suitcases, sometimes crying on the lawn. Everyone wondered what fiasco had erupted at the Hayes house. Walking out one morning to grab the mail, I met old Ms. Richardson from next door. She gave me a sympathetic smile. "Dear, I don't mean to pry, but is everything all right? I've seen so much commotion." I forced a polite nod. "It's just personal issues. Some legal disputes. I'm fine, thanks for asking." She patted my arm. "You seem like a good man, Brad. If you ever need anything, just knock." Her kindness stung, reminding me how humiliating it was to have my marital collapse on public display. But I thanked her. At least some folks still believed in me. In time, the truth would surface. With Josephine continuing to flail, she tried one final stunt, calling Sharon to ask if we could settle out of court. She wanted the divorce dropped, or at least softened. Sharon relayed the conversation. "She said something about offering partial concessions, giving you some assets if you reduce the lawsuit demands," Sharon reported, eyes rolling. "I told her to put it in writing, but you likely won't be interested unless it's a full confession and decent payout." I snorted. "Yeah, I'm not dropping anything unless she meets my terms. She must be terrified about the evidence I have." Sharon nodded. "From her tone, yes. She's terrified. Possibly thinks she can sweet-talk you again?" I rubbed my temple. "She can't. Let her walk away with the clothes on her back. That's more than she deserves after trashing my life." Sharon gave me a concerned look. "You realize how big a 180 you've done? From the guy who used to dream about building a family with her?" A pang stabbed my heart. "I do. But you've seen what she turned our marriage into. I can't forgive that." She nodded. "Understood. I'll maintain a hard line. If she truly wants a settlement, she has to accept your demands. No spousal support, no claims on your new bank accounts, and full accountability for her part in the workplace conspiracy." I exhaled, tension coiling. Yes, that's non-negotiable. Amid the personal war, Stella kept me updated on the office front. Turns out more staff quietly supported me. They were relieved that Oliver's stranglehold was broken. A small handful of them provided statements that they'd seen Oliver forging my signature on certain documents or overheard Quincy bragging about controlling HR to keep employees in line. It was like a dam had burst. People who once feared speaking up now realized they had a chance to fix the toxic environment. Stella told me, "There's talk about forming a committee to reevaluate HR policies once this is over. People want you on it." I felt a flicker of pride. "I'd be honored to help, but let's see if the board invites me." She grinned. "They will. Trust me. You're the hero of the hour now." Hero? The word sat oddly on my tongue. I wasn't sure I felt like one, overshadowed by heartbreak and anger, but if my actions helped the firm weed out scumbags, I'd take it as a victory. Meanwhile, the board apparently pressed forward with a formal, internal investigation. Quincy was forced to produce HR records, but many were lost or incomplete, fueling suspicion that he'd tampered with them. The senior partners scrambled to contain the PR disaster. I got a call from Colin, one of the top partners. He spoke in hushed, urgent tones. "Brad, we want you to stay. We're going to terminate Oliver and Quincy. Might be legal battles ahead, but we'd like your help revamping policies. Possibly an upper management position for you down the line. Are you open to that?" My chest tightened. "Yes, but I have terms. I won't drop my lawsuits unless I see genuine accountability. Quincy and Oliver need to be out. No severance, no references. I also want an apology from the firm for letting them harass me." Colin paused. "We can't promise everything yet, but I think we can meet you halfway. Let's talk next week, once the dust settles." That was enough for me to keep an open mind. The firm needed me now, ironically. I intended to use that leverage to ensure real justice. Late that evening, after Josephine had again left the house with her final belongings, I stood in the dark living room, scanning the place that once felt so warm. I noticed a faint perfume lingering near the couch. The memory of her vile nights with Oliver or whoever. The sense of betrayal cut deep, even though I tried to numb it. Suddenly, my phone pinged with an email from Sharon. Court hearing scheduled sooner than expected. They want initial testimonies next week. Be prepared to share some video evidence. My heart pounded. Next week was unbelievably fast, thanks to some expedited procedure the judge had granted. That meant the next chapter in my war, going public with the videos, with the entire humiliating story, was imminent. But if it meant exposing them fully, so be it. I locked the front door, stepping outside to breathe the cool night air. Up above, the stars seemed distant and cold. Everything in my life had changed so drastically. Yet I felt a grim sense of purpose. Let the hearing come. I'd face Josephine, Oliver, Quincy, and I'd lay out their sins for the world to see. This was the final push toward the reckoning I'd craved. The days leading up to the preliminary court hearing felt like living in a pressure cooker. My phone never stopped buzzing with queries from lawyers, friends, even old acquaintances who read rumors in the business press. Josephine texted me daily, vacillating between rage, apologies, and veiled threats. Meanwhile, the firm lurched forward with internal purges, pushing out more of Oliver's cronies. I tried to maintain composure, but each sunrise brought me closer to stepping into a courtroom, presenting intimate evidence of my wife's betrayals. My entire life would be dissected. Yet that was the cost of seeking the justice they forced me to demand. Out in the marketing world, Josephine's professional reputation plummeted once the local scene discovered she was entangled in a workplace sex scandal. Former clients distanced themselves. Some quietly told me they'd heard rumors of her inappropriate relationships with potential sponsors. She was blacklisted from a couple of agencies that once courted her. She complained via text, "You're ruining my career too." My reply was a curt, "You did that all on your own." Apparently, she was staying with a distant cousin or some friend. Her social media turned eerily silent. No more curated photos or marketing success posts. She was rapidly learning that cheating with coworkers in a high-profile fiasco has real consequences. Oliver's meltdown was even more public. He'd been known as a young rising star in finance circles. Now he was a pariah. The hush-hush talk labeled him a manipulative opportunist who used company resources to indulge in personal gratification. A few tabloids picked up sensational headlines. Investment, hotshots, extracurriculars, spark mass lawsuits. I felt no pity. He reaped what he sowed. One evening I caught wind that he'd tried to plead with the board for a severance package to avoid public legal drama. They refused. Garrison and Cole cut him off cold. He was left floundering. The rumor was his personal bank accounts were frozen, pending an investigation into embezzlement or payroll fraud. Perfect. The biggest bombshell, however, came from Quincy's side. Through Stella's tip about the forcibly withdrawn HR complaint and others that surfaced, local law enforcement discovered potential blackmail and sexual harassment patterns. One morning, news broke that Quincy was arrested, charged with fraud, harassment, and possibly bribery. I arrived at the office to see him being led out by uniformed cops, his expression a bizarre mix of fear and anger. The entire staff gawked. Someone whispered, "They found hush payments from the HR budget." Another claimed he forced employees to engage in sexual acts under threat of termination. It was horrifying. But seeing him handcuffed also brought me a measure of justice. This man had not only stolen from me, but also preyed on vulnerable co-workers. He deserved every day of punishment that lay ahead. As the scandal ballooned, a local TV station requested an interview with me. Sharon advised caution, but also recognized an opportunity to frame my perspective publicly, especially with the preliminary hearing imminent. So I agreed to a short, carefully orchestrated segment. It felt surreal, sitting under bright studio lights, facing a polished anchor named Linda, who introduced me. Brad Hayes, the man at the center of the Garrison and Cole controversy, joins us. Brad, thank you for being here. I forced a polite nod. Thank you for having me. She dove into broad questions about the environment at GNC and how I uncovered wrongdoing. I kept my answers measured, not naming all the details. I trusted them all, I said solemnly. And that trust was exploited. Colleagues used my dedication against me, took credit for my work, and turned my personal life into a sick game. Now the truth is out. Linda pressed about Josephine and the alleged affair. My stomach knotted, but I replied evenly. I won't go into explicit personal details, but yes, she was involved with some of my co-workers, particularly those orchestrating the scam. It's been devastating personally, but I believe shining a light on corruption is necessary. Her concluding question. What do you hope comes from all this? I gazed at the camera. Accountability, integrity. I'm still proud of Garrison and Cole's core mission, but it needs to rebuild, free of toxic influences. As for my marriage, that's a separate heartbreak, but I won't let it define me. I'm here to set the record straight. The broadcast ended, leaving me drained, but oddly relieved. The anchor thanked me off camera, saying, "You handled that well." Maybe. The reality was that I felt exposed, but I also felt a sense of closure. A day later, I experienced a different confrontation. Josephine's father, a wiry, gray-haired man named Thomas, showed up at my doorstep. In the past, we'd shared cordial dinners. Now his glare was frosty as he demanded, "Let me in." I sighed, stepping aside, bracing for a fight. He marched to the living room, spinning to face me. "You've destroyed my daughter's life. She can't find work. She's humiliated. Have you no decency?" Rage flared. "She destroyed our marriage, not me, and she helped sabotage my career. I only brought that sabotage to light. If that cost her job prospects, well, that's on her." He fumed. "You could have settled this quietly. Instead, you dragged it into the courts, the papers." I folded my arms. "You think I wanted this? She turned my home into her personal affair playground with half my co-workers. She forced me to take legal action. I'm not about to let her waltz off scot-free." Thomas's mouth opened, then closed, face reddening. Finally, he murmured, "She told me some version of events, but I see now it might not have been the full truth." I offered no comfort. "If you're here to guilt me, you're wasting your breath. She made her choices. I owe her nothing." He slumped slightly. I want to see if there's any chance for reconciliation, for an amicable path." My chest tightened. "No. That ship sailed the day I found her with another man. Now we're heading for divorce and lawsuits. End of story." He studied me a moment, then nodded, a flicker of regret crossing his expression. "I see. Well, good luck, Brad. I used to think highly of you. I'm sorry it came to this." I watched him leave, my emotions swirling. Part of me sympathized with a father worried about his daughter's downfall. But I refused to bear guilt for her sins. Soon after, Josephine's lawyer sent a formal request for spousal support, arguing she was used to a certain standard of living, that she'd contributed to my success, etc. My laugh was harsh reading it. Sharon quickly filed a rebuttal, highlighting Josephine's infidelity, her role in defrauding me, and the financial harm she caused. Sharon summarized in a phone call. "We'll push the narrative that Josephine's conduct disqualifies her from alimony. Some states are more lenient about awarding spousal support even if there's adultery, but the additional conspiracy aspect strengthens your case. She might walk away with zero." "Good," I said. "I'm not paying a cent to the woman who orchestrated my humiliation." Sharon chuckled. "Spoken like a man who's sure of his stance." I was. If Josephine wanted financial help, she could ask Oliver. But from what I heard, Oliver was flat broke now. Fitting, I thought grimly. As if scripted from a bad soap opera, Oliver tried calling me one night, presumably from a new phone since the firm seized his company cell. I debated ignoring it, but curiosity won. His voice was hollow. "Brad, I know you hate me, but can we talk? Just 5 minutes. I owe you an apology." A bitter lump formed in my throat. "Apology? Now?" "Listen," he pleaded. "I messed up. My ego, the excitement of hooking up with Josephine, it was a game at first. But I never intended to ruin your life. Or sabotage you so badly. I just got carried away. I forced a laugh. You forged timesheets, took credit for my labor, used my wife on multiple occasions. That's more than getting carried away. That's a dedicated campaign of betrayal. He sighed heavily. I know. I've lost everything, man. The job, my savings, I'm living in a friend's spare room. I just want you to know I'm sorry. A flicker of twisted satisfaction sparked in me, hearing him so broken. Apology doesn't fix the damage, or the humiliation you inflicted. I know, he whispered. I don't expect forgiveness. Just for what it's worth, I regret it. I exhaled, considering a final word. Keep your apology. A single sorry won't fix 6 months of sabotage. Then I ended the call, feeling an odd sense of release. Let him stew in regret. Those who had smaller roles, like forging minor documents or joining the fun parties, sensed the hammer coming. Some scrambled to contact me, offering to testify on my behalf if I dropped potential claims against them. My stance was consistent: cooperate fully, sign sworn statements, or face possible suits. Sharon and I orchestrated a cascade of settlements. Each co-conspirator coughed up amounts ranging from a few thousand to tens of thousands, acknowledging wrongdoing. The hush-hush deals piled up in my new bank account. The irony, I was ironically profiting from their betrayal. I told Sharon I'd happily sacrifice that money just to have my old honest life back. But since that was impossible, I'd use the funds to secure my future. At least something good might come of it financially. Meanwhile, the board at Garrison & Cole moved swiftly to finalize Oliver and Quincy's terminations. They also dismissed or disciplined a handful of other complicit staff. My HR complaint was vindicated beyond doubt. The firm offered me a formal letter acknowledging their failure to protect me from harassment and sabotage. That letter, by the way, carried a quiet suggestion. If you stay, we'll promote you to a leading role in compliance or a partner track. I was tempted. I told them I'd consider it after the hearing. My revenge was partially complete, but the final stage confronting Josephine in court still loomed. Only after that did I feel I could fully decide the next step in my career. One late evening, as I sorted through legal documents, I stumbled on a new revelation. Josephine apparently conned a small investment property with Oliver some condo unit. They tried to keep it hidden, though the timesheet scam had partially funded it. This property had likely been their secret love nest or a potential flip for profit. Now that both were facing lawsuits, they might lose it. This gave me new ammo. I could demand Josephine transfer her share of the property to me as part of the divorce settlement, or face further liability. The symbolism of taking ownership of a condo they bought with stolen credit from my labor appealed to my sense of poetic justice. Staring at the property deed, I felt that cold fury again. Their arrogance was mind-blowing. But soon, very soon, I'd stand in court, show the judge the depth of their treachery. Let them face the humiliating details they inflicted on me, and I'd walk away with not just moral vindication, but tangible wins. I woke one gray morning with the weight of everything pressing on my chest: court dates, depositions, the knowledge that I'd soon stand in front of a judge, describing the ugliest details of my life. The house, once filled with Josephine's presence, now echoed with emptiness. At first, it was a relief having her gone, but a surprising loneliness also stalked the halls, reminding me that even a toxic marriage once carried something resembling warmth. Still, I pressed on. The illusions that had bound me were gone, replaced by a sober determination. End this entire fiasco. End it so thoroughly that none of these traitors, Josephine, Oliver, Quincy, could ever worm their way back. If I had to sacrifice the final scraps of my privacy, so be it. I'd heard rumors Oliver was descending into something like a personal hell. He could barely pay his rent. The firm had frozen or seized any unvested bonuses he had. He was under investigation for forging timesheet data, meaning he might face criminal charges. Even if he managed to avoid jail, his name was trash in the finance world. Nobody wanted to hire a known con artist. In a twisted sense, that was exactly the punishment I wanted for him. Money had been his golden idol. The life he bragged about, flashy suits, high-end dinners, the smug grin he shot me every time he assigned me extra tasks, that life was gone. Late one evening, I got an unexpected call from an unknown number. Normally, I ignored those, but my gut told me it might be relevant. I picked up, and sure enough, Oliver's voice crackled over the line, sounding shaky. Oliver, quietly, "Brad, I need to talk." Me, "We have nothing to talk about. We've done this dance." Oliver, "I'm desperate, okay? I can't find work. The next hearing is soon, and I'm out of cash, man." Me, "That's your problem, Oliver, not mine." He let out a nervous laugh, sounding almost delirious. Oliver, "You got your vengeance, congrats. But please, if you ease up on the lawsuit demands, maybe I can salvage something." Me, "You think I owe you mercy after everything you did?" Oliver, It got out of control, that's all." Me, "You actively orchestrated it. You used my wife. You humiliated me. You siphoned my hours for your own paycheck. That's not out of control. That's a deliberate con." There was a pause. Then I heard him breathe heavily. Oliver, "I'm sorry, all right? That's all I can say. If I could go back..." Me, Don't even finish that sentence." I ended the call. Guilt or not, I wasn't letting him off. He'd made his bed by orchestrating the worst betrayal of my life. Let him lie in it. My soon-to-be's wife fared no better. She was apparently bouncing between acquaintances' apartments, none wanting her long-term because of the scandal. She texted me random updates. "I can't believe you locked me out of everything. I have no money. They won't hire me back after that fiasco. Everyone knows your side of the story." I read them and felt minimal pity. She had the gall to imply my side overshadowed hers. As if her own actions, sleeping with multiple men from my firm, turning my house into a free-for-all, openly mocking me, hadn't done that already. A text arrived one afternoon that was borderline pitiful. Josephine. Text, "Brad, please, I can't keep couch surfing. Can we at least talk about a settlement? I'll do anything you want, if you just let me breathe." I typed back after a moment's hesitation. Me. Text, "We'll see what the judge says at the hearing. If you want a reduced penalty, come clean. Don't lie, don't manipulate. Then we can talk." She read it. No immediate reply. Probably too stunned that I refused to fold. But that was the whole point. The old Brad might have caved to emotional pleas. The new Brad, forged by betrayal, refused. In the swirling chaos, one person consistently checked on my well-being. Stella. We'd never been close before. But adversity reveals hidden connections, I suppose. She'd occasionally drop by my cubicle or text me if I was working remotely, just to ask how I was holding up. One Wednesday, she approached while I was eating a quick lunch in the break room. Her eyes were kind, but worried. Stella. "You look exhausted. Are you sleeping okay?" I shrugged. "I manage. The hearing's in a few days, so that's on my mind. Plus, all the depositions, the paperwork." She nodded. "If you need any statements from me or if you want me to testify about the timesheet stuff, just say the word." I offered a grateful half-smile. "Thanks, Stella. Sharon might have you come in as a witness for the second round if Oliver tries to deny the forgery. But for now, we're good." She laid a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Hang in there, Brad. Everyone's rooting for you, at least those of us with a conscience. You deserve better." A lump of emotion rose in my throat. "Thank you truly. I didn't expect anyone to back me up like this. You put your own job at risk." She blushed. "Worth it. The firm needed this cleansing, and you deserve justice." For a moment, I just gazed at her, struck by the sincerity in her eyes. In a world swirling with betrayals, it felt good having an ally. A part of me recognized a quiet warmth between us, but I pushed it aside. Now wasn't the time for anything romantic. I had to focus on the war at hand. My divorce hearing was set for the same week as the preliminary hearing for the workplace lawsuit. The courthouse bustled with attorneys and plaintiffs, each with their own legal drama. The notion of facing Josephine again in such a formal setting felt surreal, like we'd gone from husband and wife to mortal enemies in a matter of months. Sharon prepared me thoroughly. She'd present evidence of Josephine's infidelity and conspiracy. We'd emphasize her direct role in harming my career. We'd push for zero spousal support and full liability for legal fees. If the judge agreed, Josephine would walk away with practically nothing. Her attorneys might argue marital property rights. But we had proof that she'd funneled resources into shady deals with Oliver, so we'd demand offset. The night before the hearing, I tossed in bed, memories swirling. Our wedding day, Josephine's smile so bright. All the Fridays I'd worked late, clueless that she was with someone else. The rage and heartbreak the night I witnessed her hooking up with Quincy. I wondered if, in some twisted alternate timeline, we could have been saved. But reality snapped back. She'd chosen betrayal, over and over. Letting go was my only option now. On the day of the divorce hearing, I arrived at the county courthouse wearing a suit that suddenly felt too tight. My nerves sizzled. Sharon, by my side, offered a reassuring nod. Josephine was already there, hunched over a bench with her lawyer. She looked disheveled, dark circles under her eyes, no longer the poised marketing professional I once knew. The judge, a stern woman named Myers, called our case. We took our places. Sharon began with a succinct statement of the facts. Irretrievable breakdown of marriage due to Josephine's multiple affairs, documented sabotage of my career, financial manipulations, etc. She requested the court approve the divorce with a penalty approach that left Josephine without spousal support. Josephine's lawyer tried to paint me as emotionally distant and neglectful. They claimed Josephine sought affection elsewhere because I was never home. That stung, because part of me felt guilty about working so hard. But then, Sharon calmly presented our evidence of the extramarital hookups, plus the conspiratorial messages. The judge's expression tightened at the mention of multiple partners in my own home. We played a short clip, blurry images of Josephine, intimately entangled with Quincy. Josephine stared at the table, cheeks flushed. The judge's gaze flickered in disapproval. Judge Myers: Mrs. Hayes, do you dispute the authenticity of this footage? Josephine's voice shook. No, it was a mistake. Judge Myers: A repeated mistake, apparently. And it extends beyond one individual? Sharon nodded, handing over transcripts of texts referencing Oliver and the second man. Josephine's lawyer looked grim. The judge skimmed them, eyebrows climbing higher. Judge Myers: This is quite extensive. Sharon then outlined how Josephine had contributed to a scheme harming my livelihood, describing the extra hours forced upon me while she and Oliver profited. We offered bank statements, Venmo logs, and witness statements. It was a thorough takedown. Josephine shifted in her seat, eyes watery. Her lawyer mumbled about extenuating circumstances, but the judge cut him off. Judge Myers: I see no mitigating factors that excuse collusion in defrauding a spouse or the firm. This is a serious betrayal. Finally, the judge turned to Josephine, voice stern. Judge Myers: Mrs. Hayes, your conduct here is unconscionable. Adultery alone doesn't always result in denying support. But combined with your clear conspiracy to sabotage Mr. Hayes' career, I see grounds to award him full advantage in the divorce settlement. Josephine sniffed, tears trickling down. For a second, I felt a pang of pity, but then I remembered the sheer cruelty of her mocking me. The judge continued. Judge Myers: I'm prepared to grant the divorce effective immediately, awarding Mr. Hayes the marital home and the majority of marital assets. No spousal support. Any future negotiations about dividing personal property can be handled privately, but from what I see, that division will heavily favor Mr. Hayes. Josephine's lawyer tried a last objection, citing fair distribution. But the judge was unmoved. She hammered her gavel, sealing the verdict. Just like that, the marriage was officially dead on paper. Josephine's face crumpled, and her lawyer patted her arm. Sharon squeezed my shoulder in triumph. Walking out of that courtroom, I felt both a wave of relief and an odd hollowness. The marriage was over. The judge had recognized Josephine's guilt, awarding me nearly everything. I'd gotten what I wanted, but my heart felt cold. Betrayal leaves scars that no legal victory can fully erase. In the hallway, Josephine caught me by the elbow, tears streaking her cheeks. Josephine, sobbing. "Oh God, Brad, what have we done? Everything's ruined my life." I stepped back, voice tight. "You chose this path. I only revealed it." Josephine. "I never intended for it to go so far. I was lonely. You were always at work, and Oliver was so charming." My anger flared. "Spare me the excuses. You weren't lonely. You were greedy. You had affairs with multiple men, turned them loose in our house. You schemed with them to keep me away. This was no isolated mistake." She broke down, shoulders shaking. People passing by stared. I sighed, wanting to be done with the scene. "You reap what you sow," I said quietly. "We're done." Before I could walk off, she grabbed my hand with a desperate look. I'm sorry, okay? I know it's worthless. But I'm sorry." I pulled free, ignoring the lump in my throat. "Find a new place to live. Build a new life or whatever. I have nothing left for you." Her sobs echoed as I walked away, Sharon ushering me forward. Better let her cry, I thought. Maybe that was the first time she truly faced the gravity of her betrayal. With the divorce handled, Sharon and I pivoted to finalizing the workplace lawsuits. Multiple ex-co-workers had settled, each paying me damages for their roles in forging documents. The sums varied. Some wrote personal apologies, hoping for leniency. I felt no desire to read their pleas for forgiveness. I simply accepted the money. Oliver tried to drag his feet, claiming he had no funds. But we discovered that secret condo property he coned with Josephine, plus some stashed accounts. Under threat of being forced to liquidate everything, he caved, agreeing to a settlement that covered a portion of my legal expenses and personal damages. He'd remain under criminal investigation for timesheet fraud, but that was on the state to pursue. Quincy, behind bars pending trial for harassment and bribery, had less to offer. He eventually pleaded out, awarding me a chunk of his personal savings to avoid a civil trial on top of the criminal charges. The entire fiasco was unbelievably messy, but each settlement was another piece of closure. By the end, my personal finances soared ironically. The house was fully mine, I had a comfortable cushion in the bank, and the firm was offering me a significant role if I stayed. The once impossible notion that I might come out of this fiasco better off professionally and financially was becoming reality. Only the emotional scars lingered, reminding me that no sum of money could truly fix heartbreak. Amid these private settlements, there was still the official preliminary hearing for the civil suit that I, with Sharon's help, had filed against Oliver, Quincy, and by extension the Garrison and Cole leadership who had turned a blind eye. Even though the firm's board had parted ways with the main culprits, they remained partially liable as the umbrella organization. The courtroom was packed on the hearing day, reporters, random onlookers, staff from the firm. Stella had taken the day off to appear as a supporting witness. Josephine, interestingly, was nowhere in sight, presumably because her personal suit was already settled in the divorce. Oliver arrived looking pale, accompanied by an overworked public defender. Quincy was absent, presumably still in custody. The judge, a different one this time. Judge Harrow listened as Sharon laid out the essence of my complaint, that Oliver and Quincy, empowered by their positions, conspired to keep me overworked while forging timesheets to funnel credit to Oliver. That they intimidated or coerced other staff, that they even set up certain social gatherings, culminating in personal corruption. The firm was also on the hook for failing to oversee or prevent such acts. Oliver's lawyer tried to argue that I was complicit, or that I never objected to the workload. I bristled at that, but Sharon easily dismantled it by pointing out I had no reason to suspect misconduct until I discovered the payroll anomalies. Then Stella took the stand, calm, but clearly nervous. She testified about overhearing Oliver brag about Brad's easy to manipulate, about how Quincy told her to hush up any rumors. She presented copies of the forging instructions she found in the system logs. The judge's eyes narrowed, clearly unimpressed by the blatant wrongdoing. Oliver squirmed at the defense table. He tried to speak up at one point, but his lawyer silenced him. The hearing ended with Judge Harrow announcing that the case would proceed to the next phase, but strongly hinting that Oliver's side had little defense. The hush in the courtroom was palpable. Outside, reporters swarmed me for quotes. Reporter 1. "Mr. Hayes, how do you feel about the judge's remarks?" Me. "I'm glad the court sees there's a strong case for holding them accountable." Reporter 2. "Some say you're seeking revenge, not justice. Care to comment?" Me. "All I sought was to reveal the truth. The facts speak for themselves." It was intense, but I held my ground. Sharon whisked me away soon after, congratulating me. "This was the last big hurdle, Brad. They'll likely settle rather than drag the firm's name deeper in the mud." I nodded, relief coursing through me. The official meltdown was nearing its end, and I was on the winning side. Yet I couldn't help but wonder what now. Once the last legal domino fell, how did I rebuild my life? I'd spent so long fueled by vengeance. In the following weeks, Garrison and Cole's board made good on their promise. They approached me with an offer. They wanted me to become a senior partner once the dust fully settled, helming a new compliance and ethics initiative. Essentially, I'd become the face of their redemption story, the honest analyst who exposed corruption. I wrestled with the decision. Part of me wanted a fresh start at a different firm, free of painful memories. Another part recognized that I could shape Garrison and Cole into a truly ethical environment, with Stella and other honest employees at my side. Ultimately, I decided to accept. The board's financial package was generous, and the chance to rebuild the place from within was appealing. When I told Stella, she grinned widely. "That's fantastic. If you're leading compliance, maybe I won't have to worry about shady bosses forging documents." I chuckled. "Exactly. I owe you for helping me. If you want a bigger role, let me know." She nodded eagerly. "I'd love to help in any capacity. This is the future the firm needs." That evening, I signed an initial contract. For once, I felt something like hope stirring. One cool Friday night, weeks after the hearing, the divorce finalized and the lawsuits mostly resolved, I returned home from a final meeting with Sharon about some leftover details. I stepped inside, noticing the quiet hum of the fridge, the soft glow of a single lamp. The house was truly mine now, no chance of Josephine waltzing in unannounced, no dread that another random co-worker might appear. I found myself sinking onto the couch, exhaling a long breath. My reflection stared back from the dark TV screen. The last few months had been a roller coaster of betrayal, heartbreak, anger, and cunning. I'd lost a marriage, but I'd gained self-respect. I'd been humiliated, but I'd gotten retribution. I'd even come out financially stable with a new career path that gave me a place of leadership. The hush enveloped me. For the first time, that hush wasn't lonely, it was peaceful. The war at home had ended, the war at the firm had ended, and I stood victorious in the wreckage. If I closed my eyes, I could almost sense a new chapter beginning. With the lawsuits winding down and the divorce decreed final, I found myself grappling with a strange emptiness. For so long, I'd fixated on revenge and survival. Now that I'd won, what was next? Free from the old marriage, I was a single man in his early 30s with a promising job path, a newly minted partner track, and a bank account flush from multiple settlements. Yet, my heart still bore the scars left by Josephine's betrayal. One morning, I walked around the house, collecting old wedding photos, random trinkets from Josephine's taste. Each item felt like a small dagger, reminding me of what we had been. I quietly boxed them up, taping the lid shut. Part of me thought I'd toss them in the attic. Another part considered burning them out back. Ultimately, I just stacked them in the garage out of sight, out of mind. I'd already changed the locks, thrown out her old clothes. The official divorce documents arrived by mail, ironically neat in their legal language. The court hereby declares the marriage between Bradley Hayes and Josephine Hayes dissolved. I reread the line, letting out a sigh. It was so final, so bureaucratic. But it was the last piece of paper severing that old life. My ring had been stuffed in a drawer for weeks. I decided to donate it or melt it down eventually. With each step, I pulled further from the shadow of that marriage. Josephine tried one more time to contact me after the final decree. Her text read, "Brad, can we talk face-to-face? Just for closure? I have no one else." I stared at my phone, the war inside me flaring. She'd said it was just sex, that I was never home, that she wanted fun. She made me the fool. Why should I help her find closure? But some part of me, maybe the old Brad, felt pity. I told her, 1 hour tomorrow, a coffee shop near my house. After that, we're done. So, the next day, we met in a small cafe. She looked exhausted, her once luxurious hair limp, her clothes plain. She offered a weak smile as I sat across from her. Josephine, softly. "Thanks for meeting me." Me. "Make it quick." She fiddled with her coffee cup. "I know you hate me. I don't blame you. I wanted to say, I truly regret everything. I didn't realize how deep I was in until it was too late." I studied her face, searching for sincerity. "You had multiple chances to stop once with Quincy, then Oliver, then that second associate. You didn't, so you realized it enough to keep going." She grimaced. "I can't defend it. I guess I was addicted to the excitement, the power. Oliver said he'd help my career. Quincy offered me connections, too. I was stupid." Silence. A swirl of resentment and old longing simmered. Finally, I said, "Well, you cost yourself everything. The judge left you with nothing. You're basically blacklisted in marketing. Are you planning to rebuild somewhere?" She shrugged miserably. "I might leave the city, try to start fresh. But I have hardly any funds. I'm not asking you for more. I know you'd refuse. Maybe a small apology can help me move on." I scoffed. "It's a bit late for that, but if it helps your conscience, say whatever you need." Her eyes moistened. "I'm sorry, Brad. Genuinely, I never set out to hurt you. If I could go back, I'd do it differently." A wave of conflicting emotions swirled rage at her betrayal, sadness at the collapse of what once was real love. For a heartbeat, I recalled the bright-eyed woman I'd married. Then I remembered her sneering with Oliver in my living room. My voice came out flat. Me. "Apology accepted in the sense that I won't waste energy hating you forever. But it changes nothing. Our marriage is over, the lawsuits are done, let's leave each other in peace." She nodded, tears dripping into her coffee. "I understand." We sat in silence, the hum of the cafe around us. Then I stood. "Take care, Josephine. This is the last time we talk." Her shoulders shook as she murmured, "Goodbye, Brad." I walked out, the tension in my chest lifting. I realized I'd let go of the hate. She was just a broken person who'd made awful choices, and I was done letting her weigh on me. I felt strangely lighter. A week later, I heard Oliver left the city entirely. Rumor said he packed his beat-up car with whatever he had left, driving cross-country to a distant relative who might give him a couch to crash on. No job prospects, no connections. People at the firm sighed. Couldn't have happened to a more deserving jerk. I quietly agreed. He was gone, with no illusions of returning. Part of me wondered if he'd nurse a vendetta from afar, but without resources or credibility, he was effectively powerless. A fleeting pang of pity surfaced. For all Oliver's arrogance, I once considered him a buddy. Now he'd taste the consequences of using others. Perhaps that was for the best. Quincy's criminal case concluded swiftly. The evidence of his bribery, harassment, and forging HR documents was overwhelming. He took a plea deal, receiving a prison sentence, not super long, but enough to brand him a felon. The day they hauled him off, some ex-colleagues cheered silently. He'd terrorized them for years. Sharon confirmed I'd see some restitution from Quincy's personal assets, most of which I'd already attached in the civil suit. That closed the chapter on him, removing any lingering threat he might pose. Good riddance. By the time Garrison and Cole finished purging corrupt staff, the board asked me to officially accept a senior partner role focusing on compliance and oversight. It was a staggering step up, practically doubling my prior salary. I hesitated momentarily, worried about overshadowing my painful memories. But the chance to shape the firm's future was too compelling. I said yes. The morning they announced me as partner and director of ethical operations, I experienced an odd mix of triumph and humility. I remembered how I used to be just a dedicated analyst, yearning for a promotion Oliver dangled like bait. Now I earned it on my own merits, plus the forced spotlight of the scandal. In my acceptance speech delivered to a room of employees, I avoided references to Josephine or the personal humiliations. I simply stated that I believed in accountability and transparency, that I'd ensure no one else endured what I did. People applauded. Stella beamed from the front row. It felt like a new dawn for the firm. Speaking of Stella, my first act was to promote her to a lead position. She'd proven her integrity and resourcefulness, risking her own job to expose wrongdoing. Some might call that nepotism, but I saw it as recognizing an unsung hero. Me, quietly to her, "You deserve this. You've carried so much weight quietly." Stella, "Brad, I don't know what to say, thank you. I promise I won't let you down." Her eyes shone with gratitude. That moment, I realized I'd grown closer to her than any other colleague. Over the past months, we'd bonded through adversity. A quiet part of me wondered if that closeness might evolve into something more. But I resolved to tread carefully, not wanting to rebound too soon after the divorce. Sharon, who orchestrated the brilliant legal strategy, became something of a minor celebrity in legal circles. She was hailed for cracking the code on a complex web of corporate misconduct and personal betrayal. She told me with a grin, "Sharon, I'm fielding new clients daily, folks who want a pit bull attorney. I might open my own firm soon." Me, "You deserve it. Couldn't have done it without you." She gave me a sly smile. I only won because I had a star witness and a ton of damning evidence. But sure, let's say I was brilliant. Her eyes sparkled with pride, and I was genuinely happy for her. If anyone deserved a windfall from my tragedy, it was her. She'd guided me with compassion and skill, never letting me lose sight of the bigger picture. Now that everything was settled, the quiet reality set in. At night, I sometimes jolted awake, nightmares replaying the moment I found Josephine with Quincy, or the humiliating laughter Oliver shared at my expense. The rational side of me knew they were defeated, but trauma lingers. I decided to see a therapist. Some men might shy away, but I recognized I needed help processing the betrayal and anger. My therapist, a calm man named Dr. Harding, listened patiently as I recounted the entire saga. He validated my feelings, suggested I allow myself to mourn, not just the marriage, but the illusions I'd cherished, my naive belief that loyalty was automatic. Dr. Harding also reminded me that healing would involve letting go of obsession. "You got your justice," he told me gently. "Now find what brings you peace or joy. Life is more than vengeance, Brad." He was right, of course. If I clung to bitterness, I'd never truly move on. Let Josephine remain a cautionary tale, not an eternal shadow. As the days turned warmer, I realized Stella and I had fallen into a comfortable pattern, working closely on new compliance measures, grabbing lunch sometimes, even joking about the old fiasco. There was a subtle warmth in our dynamic now. One evening, after a late meeting, she said, "Stella," smiling, "want to grab dinner? My treat. We deserve a break." We ended up at a cozy Italian place, sipping wine, laughing about normal, everyday things. I caught myself studying her smile, noticing how it lit her entire face. She wasn't glamorous in the flashy way Josephine had been, but she radiated a quiet honesty that I found deeply attractive. Eventually, she admitted with a shy laugh, "I told myself I'd never date a coworker, but you're basically the reason I stayed at GNC. You give me hope it can be better." My heart fluttered in an unfamiliar way. Maybe the old me would have worried about complicating the workplace, but now I recognized that genuine connections rarely come in tidy packages. Me. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't drawn to you, Stella. But I just got out of a rough marriage. I don't want to rebound or cause scandal. She nodded earnestly. I get it. We can take it slow. No rush. I value our friendship first. I breathed a small sigh of relief. That sounds good. Slow is good. We'll see where it goes. Inside, my chest felt a cautious hope. Perhaps I'd discovered someone who respected boundaries, prized honesty, and truly had my back. The opposite of Josephine. One late-night rummage through old boxes, I stumbled on my wedding ring. I stared at the simple band that once symbolized devotion. My mind replayed all the illusions we'd built. Then, calmly, I placed it into a small envelope, labeling it scrap gold. Maybe I'd turn it into a donation or just melt it. The ring was worthless to me now. I realized that act of discarding the ring felt like completing a circle. I was truly done with that chapter. My heart still ached in places, but the unstoppable wave of despair had receded. In its wake, a new possibility flickered, a life not defined by betrayal, but by resilience and genuine connections. Weeks bled into months, and gradually the specter of the scandal faded from the headlines. Garrison and Cole stabilized under new policies. The city's finance community, once abuzz with my personal drama, found fresh gossip. I discovered an odd new normal. I was neither the humiliated husband nor the crusading whistleblower. I was just Brad living day by day, forging a different future. The board entrusted me with spearheading an ethics overhaul. I formed a small team to rewrite HR guidelines, implement stronger auditing tools, and set up a hotline for employees to safely report concerns. Stella joined wholeheartedly, designing workflows and checks that prevented another Oliver-orchestrated fiasco. In all-hands meetings, I sometimes caught glimpses of employees who once laughed behind my back. Now they looked at me with respect or awe. Some apologized, some just avoided me. I accepted that. Garrison and Cole was rebranding itself, and so was I. Client confidence returned surprisingly fast. Once we demonstrated we'd cut out the rot. My new position meant I traveled to meet top TA clients, explaining how the firm was safe from the corruption that nearly ruined it. The majority responded positively, praising my candor. In quiet moments, I marveled. I used to be just an overworked analyst. Now I'm a partner, shaping the entire firm. Strange how tragedy can catalyze growth. Outside the firm, some local acquaintances approached me with supportive words. Even older friends who'd drifted away sent messages. "We heard about your ex's betrayal. Glad you exposed everything. How are you holding up?" I realized the shame I once felt thinking everyone saw me as a cuckold or a fool was no longer relevant. The story around town was that I was the determined survivor who overcame internal sabotage. Some folks whispered about the explicit details, sure, but mostly the narrative turned to how I'd triumphed. I used that positivity to donate part of my settlement money to a local charity assisting women and men who faced workplace harassment. A small gesture, maybe, but it felt right. I wanted to show that not all men in finance were predators like Quincy. Some of us believed in a safer environment. Every so often, a rumor about Josephine surfaced, someone claiming she'd relocated to a neighboring state, scraping by on freelance marketing gigs. She'd apparently confided to one contact that she was haunted by her mistakes, that she had trouble trusting anyone and faced constant suspicion from potential clients. I didn't actively track her, but I gleaned enough to know she was still in a tough spot. Once or twice, I glimpsed an email from her in my spam folder, perhaps a final attempt at explaining herself or seeking comfort. I never read them in full, beyond verifying the sender. Instead, I deleted them. We were done. I refused to dwell on her fate. She'd carve her own path. My empathy for her was overshadowed by the memory of her callousness. And so I let the rumor mill spin without me. One day, Stella mentioned hearing from an old mutual friend that Oliver might have been arrested for public intoxication or something similar in a far-off city. The details were murky, but the gist was that he was spiraling into addiction, jobless, pride shattered. I felt no satisfaction in that. Maybe once I might have crowed about it. But after therapy, after seeing the bigger picture, I recognized that life had hammered Oliver enough. He was living in the consequences of his own arrogance. That was punishment enough. I didn't need to twist the knife further. Occasional updates from Sharon indicated Quincy was serving his sentence quietly. He'd attempted an appeal, but it failed. His name occasionally popped up in legal briefs about how Garrison and Cole's meltdown spurred him to commit more extreme acts. The general consensus, he was a manipulative figure who'd finally been caught. No one at the firm missed him. HR saw a complete overhaul under a new director. Employees reported feeling safer, freer. The old atmosphere of hush-hush intimidation was gone. In a strange sense, Quincy's downfall cleared the way for genuine progress. Thanks to Dr. Harding's guidance, I found ways to cope with lingering nightmares. Sometimes I'd dream of Josephine's laughter with Oliver, wake up in a cold sweat. Instead of suppressing it, I'd remind myself that was the past. I'd breathe slowly, acknowledging the pain without letting it define me. I also started picking up old hobbies, running in the mornings, reading a few novels I'd neglected. Freed from endless hours of overtime, I discovered I had time to enjoy life. The sense of normalcy was a balm. Stella remained a supportive presence. We began hanging out more often outside work, grabbing dinner or hitting a local trail for weekend hikes. She never pushed me to define our relationship, content to let it unfold naturally. And maybe that was exactly what I needed, someone patient, kind, untainted by illusions. Some of my older friends re-entered my life once the scandal ended. A buddy named Terry invited me to a barbecue where he introduced me as the guy who taught his firm a lesson in honesty. That was jarring, but also kind of cool. People were curious, asking if I planned to write a book or do speaking engagements. I politely declined. I wasn't craving fame or a big public platform. I'd already had more spotlight than I wanted. I just wanted to do my job well, lead an honest life, and maybe find genuine connection free of deceit. At that barbecue, ironically, I realized how starved I'd been for casual, friendly gatherings that had no hidden agenda. I relaxed by the grill, chatting about sports, random jokes, not once needing to wonder if someone was screwing my wife behind my back. It felt good, normal in the best sense. Over time, Stella and I grew closer. She'd drop by my place some evenings with takeout, and we'd watch a comedy or just talk about the day. I found myself laughing again, a real, unguarded laugh. She wasn't a glamorous socialite or a cunning manipulator. She was an earnest friend who admired my resilience. One night, after too many glasses of wine, we ended up sitting on my couch, shoulders touching, a quiet tension swirling. She turned, eyes meeting mine. I felt that old flutter in my stomach, the sign of genuine attraction. Stella, voice trembling slightly. Brad, is this heading somewhere more than friendship? I inhaled. I think so. But I'm scared. My track record with relationships is well, you know. She rested a hand on mine. I understand. I'm not asking for a rush. I just want to be honest that I have feelings for you." The warmth in her gaze melted away the last vestiges of fear. Maybe I'd been waiting for permission to let hope back in. Me. "I have feelings for you too, Stella. Let's see where it goes, step by step." With that, she leaned in and I met her halfway. We shared a gentle kiss, my first real kiss after everything with Josephine ended. It was sweet, tentative, free of the anxiety that once dominated me. My heart pounded, but this time from excitement, not dread. We parted, smiling. Stella's cheeks flushed. We decided not to complicate it further that night. She soon left, but the promise of something blossoming lingered. In the quiet aftermath, I realized how far I'd come. From heartbreak to a real, if cautious, new beginning. Back at Garrison & Cole, we instituted transparency measures that dwarfed anything I'd seen in my old days as a grunt analyst. We had weekly check-ins with each department, ensuring no single manager had unilateral power over timesheets or promotions. We launched a robust training program on workplace harassment and ethical conduct. The first session I led felt surreal, standing before a crowd of employees, passionately explaining how we must never let intimidation or exploitation take root again. My voice shook a bit when I recounted an anonymous personal anecdote about how easily power can be misused. People listened, some nodding vigorously. Colin, the senior partner who initially approached me, praised my leadership style, saying it fostered trust. I was proud. If my suffering could transform the firm into a bastion of integrity, then at least something meaningful arose from the ashes. Months after the meltdown, I received a final letter from the court, confirming that all civil suits were wrapped up or settled. My name was clear, my finances secure, my position at the firm rock solid. Josephine was out of my life for good. Oliver had vanished from the city. Quincy rotted in jail. The conspirators who partook in forging records had either apologized and paid settlements or left the firm. I was the last man standing, so to speak, and ironically, I was stronger than ever, professionally, financially, emotionally. The old Brad, naive and earnest, had grown into someone sharper but also more self-assured. I sealed the letter in a file labeled "Case Closed," placing it in my desk drawer. A wave of finality washed over me. The war ended. The scoreboard read, "Betrayers 0, Brad 1." And I'd learned to see beyond that scoreboard, to embrace the possibility of genuine happiness again. As the dust of scandal, divorce, and lawsuits settled, I stood at a crossroads in my life. The anger and heartbreak that once fueled me had largely dissipated, replaced by a clearer sense of self. I was free of Josephine's betrayal, free of Oliver's manipulations, free to define my own path. The final distribution from Oliver's forced condo sale hit my account. It was a hefty sum, part of which Josephine had originally intended to invest with him. The irony: they purchased that condo partly with stolen credit from my timesheet hours. Now it returned to me. I stared at the transaction on my banking app, letting out a low chuckle. If that wasn't poetic justice, I didn't know what was. I forwarded details to Sharon, who confirmed the settlement was complete. The rest of the condo sale presumably went to cover Oliver's other debts. My portion was locked. I had more money than I'd ever imagined at my age, financial freedom of sorts. Yet I felt no urge to splurge on extravagant luxuries. The real reward was intangible: dignity, self-respect, closure. The money was just a bonus. One afternoon, purely by coincidence, I crossed paths with Josephine at a local coffee shop. She was alone, scanning the menu. I considered slipping away unseen, but she spotted me. Our eyes met, a flicker of recognition and discomfort on both sides. I felt no anger this time, just a tired acceptance. She gave a small nod, almost a silent greeting. I nodded back, then stepped to the other side of the shop. Neither of us spoke or approached. We were strangers now, sharing only the memory of a collapsed marriage. I wondered if she was still struggling or if she'd found a small measure of stability. A fleeting pang of pity surfaced, but I suppressed it. The best outcome for both of us was never crossing paths again, never reopening old wounds. After I picked up my coffee, I left quietly, not looking back. That was that. Meanwhile, Stella and I grew more comfortable acknowledging our feelings. We began dating openly a few months after the dust settled, carefully keeping our personal life separate from the daily office environment. The board, ironically, had no problem with it since we were two consenting adults in different divisions. One weekend, we took a short trip to a lakeside cabin, pure relaxation. There, amid the quiet hush of nature, I realized how deeply I'd come to care for her. She was everything Josephine wasn't. Genuine, down-to-earth, supportive. We spent hours canoeing, cooking simple meals, talking about random dreams for the future. On the last night, under a blanket of stars, we sat on the cabin's small dock, feet dangling over the water. I found myself opening up about my lingering insecurities, how I sometimes worried about trusting again, how I feared losing my sense of self. She listened, eyes gentle in the moonlight. Stella, it's okay to still have scars. Love doesn't erase them. It just helps us carry them. That single line resonated. I leaned in and kissed her, not out of a desperate need to forget the past, but out of gratitude for this new, healthy connection. A quiet thrill coursed through me. For the first time since the scandal began, I glimpsed a future bright with possibility, one that didn't revolve around betrayal or revenge. Sharon, having achieved local fame from this case, decided to open her own law firm. She invited me to the opening ceremony. I attended with Stella, marveling at the bustling crowd of well-wishers. Sharon, in her element, thanked me publicly for trusting her from day one. Sharon, at the mic, Brad Hayes was not just a client. He was my friend who taught me that justice can be a path to healing, not just vengeance. I'm honored I helped him reclaim his life. I felt tears threaten. The crowd applauded. Stella squeezed my hand. I raised my glass in salute to Sharon, silently acknowledging how pivotal she'd been in my resurrection from the ashes of marital destruction. Word trickled in that Oliver, after his legal settlements, had truly vanished. Some said he drifted to random states, trying odd jobs, but it never stuck. Others claimed he was in rehab or living in a halfway house. I found no joy in his misery, just a quiet acceptance that he had no place in my world anymore. Occasionally, a co-worker joked about sending him a postcard titled, "Greetings from my happy life," but I had no interest in petty jabs. I'd had my fill of vengeance, let him fade into irrelevance. A final twist. A few months after the coffee shop non-encounter, she texted me. I miss you sometimes, not as a partner, but as a friend. I hate how everything ended. I debated ignoring it, but decided a short response might be best. We can't be friends. Too much damage done. I hope you find your peace. Take care. No further messages arrived. That was closure enough, an acknowledgement that nothing could salvage the wreck of our relationship. We parted with that small courtesy, and I carried on unburdened. Over the next year, my life stabilized into a quieter rhythm. Each day, I balanced my new leadership role at GNC with personal pursuits, running, reading, occasional weekend trips with Stella. My finances stayed strong, but I avoided showy displays. The real wealth was intangible. Self-worth. A sense of justice served. A supportive companion. Sometimes I'd reflect on how close I came to utter despair. If I'd confronted Josephine in that basement a few minutes later, or if Stella hadn't helped me gather intel, or if Sharon wasn't a brilliant lawyer, things might have been different. But fate, combined with my own resolve, led me here. At times, old memories still hurt, but they no longer defined me. I began to feel a subtle sense of forgiveness, not of the betrayers themselves, but of myself, for once believing illusions. People are complicated, and sometimes illusions are comforting. But illusions rarely hold under pressure. On a crisp fall afternoon, I took Stella for a drive through the countryside, leaves turning fiery shades of orange and red. We found a quaint roadside orchard, strolled among the trees, and sipped hot cider. Stella, I've never seen you so relaxed. I smiled, inhaling the autumn air. Feels like the first time in years I'm not fighting a battle. I used to think ambition meant constant struggle. Now I realize you can strive for success in a healthy way, with good people around. She nodded, sliding her hand through mine. So any big plans next? You already reformed G&C, overcame the scandal, found new love? What's left on your bucket list? I chuckled. Maybe I'll buy a small property in the mountains, use it as a retreat when city life gets too hectic. Or try to learn guitar, something that fosters peace, not conflict, she smiled. I like that. Count me in for the mountain cabin weekends. We shared a fond look. The future felt open and hopeful, not overshadowed by betrayal or heartbreak. I realized that, in a strange way, the final stage of revenge is living well, proving that no matter how deeply someone tried to wound you, you emerged stronger, more compassionate, more alive. A few months later, Garrison and Cole hosted a celebratory dinner marking a year since the meltdown ended. Senior partners toasted how the firm overcame adversity. They singled me out for heroic honesty and recognized Stella for her integrity. A wave of applause washed over us as we stood awkwardly at the front. I recalled how, not so long ago, I dreaded stepping foot into these corridors, knowing Oliver or Quincy might smirk at me behind my back. Now I was a key figure in shaping the culture. The applause felt surreal, but I accepted it with humility. After the dinner, Stella and I lingered outside, the city lights flickering around us. She looped her arm through mine. You know, a year ago, you were on the brink of collapse. Now you're basically the firm's moral compass. I exhaled a soft laugh. Funny how life flips. That anguish still shaped me, though. I can't pretend it never happened. She nodded. No one's asking you to. It just means you carry the lessons forward. I leaned down, pressing a light kiss to her temple. Thanks for believing in me, Stella. She smiled, eyes bright. Always. In that moment, a gentle calm enveloped me. The final piece of closure was acknowledging I'd triumphed not simply by crushing my enemies, but by reclaiming my life in a healthier, kinder form. The real victory was building something meaningful from the rubble. Years from the meltdown, people might forget the details of how Josephine cheated or how Oliver manipulated the firm. They might only recall that Garrison and Cole endured a scandal and emerged with renewed integrity, largely thanks to the man who once was overshadowed by false friends. As for me, I'd look back on this chapter with gratitude that I found the strength to fight, to gather evidence, to expose the treachery. I'd remember the heartbreak, yes, but also the kindness of those who helped me Sharon's legal brilliance, Stella's unwavering moral compass. In the hush of a future evening, I might pour a glass of whiskey on the back porch of that mountain retreat, reflecting on how the darkest betrayal led me to an unexpected dawn. I'd let the past be a lesson, not a chain. Perhaps Stella would be there, leaning on my shoulder, enjoying the peaceful horizon, and I'd breathe easy, knowing I was free, truly free, to love, to trust, to live without fear. That, more than any court verdict or financial settlement, was the ultimate revenge, forging a life defined not by bitterness, but by resilience, honesty, and genuine connection. A quiet triumph, but triumph all the same. Hey, listeners of Lady Cheating Tales. If you loved today's story, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We've got more thrilling tales on the way, so don't miss out. Thanks for listening, and see you in the next story.